Charles, are you done moving yet? My father-in-law grumbles, not bothering to look at me but clearly directing his question at me. He always talks like he's the only one that matters. I've put up with it until now, but I can't anymore. I stop wiping the table and give Charles a hard stare, even though he's not looking at me. I'll be out today, I reply. Charles smirks, satisfied. You've just been a leech in garbage. I'll feel so much better when you're gone. He probably thinks, oblivious to how much his lifestyle has changed. My name's Grace. I turned 40 this year. I'm married to William and currently staying with my in-laws. It's been a few years since we got married, but we don't have kids. We don't plan on having any, and we can anyway. I found out shortly after we got married. I met William at a party, and honestly, if I'd known about his infertility from the beginning, I might not have married him. He told me on our wedding day. It felt like my world crashed down on me. We had dreams of a bright future together, imagining ourselves with perhaps 2 kids and discussing potential names for them. William even joined in on picking out names for our future children. But it was all a deception, or maybe not entirely a deception. Maybe William did desire children and thought about names, despite knowing he couldn't have them. Wasn't that the ultimate betrayal? I married him with the belief that we would create a happy family together, only to be completely deceived by William, whom I trusted implicitly. While some might have immediately filed for divorce upon discovering such a truth, divorce isn't a straightforward option for me. I had already committed to building a family with my in-laws, who are the only ones we can truly call parents. I couldn't just announce to them the day after becoming a family that we were getting divorced. Living with the in-laws meant facing the inevitable question of when we would start a family. So we decided to break the news to them right away. Naturally, we didn't blame William. Instead, we attributed our childlessness to a medical issue on my end. When they found out we couldn't have children, my in-laws were livid. A worthless woman who can't bear children should leave this house immediately, declared my father-in-law Charles, who then began treating me like a servant. From the moment I arrived, I was never treated with respect, always made to feel inferior. I ate alone in the kitchen, cleaning up after the in-laws and William finished their meals. Despite my efforts in the kitchen, I only received scraps. My weight plummeted, and within 6 months of marriage, my wrists were protruding. Previously, it was my mother-in-law Madison who bore the brunt of Charles' anger. But once I joined the family, his focus shifted to me. William noticed Madison's newfound relief. "Mom seems happier lately," he remarked, attributing it to her no longer being the target. Although she never smiled around Charles, I noticed her smiling more when talking to William. Charles's tyranny extended beyond verbal abuse. Once he learned we couldn't have children, he ordered me to work tirelessly from dawn to dusk. "Since you're not fulfilling your role as a woman, at least be useful around the house," he demanded. I had always intended to work after marriage and was eager to leave the house as soon as possible. Balancing chores, work, and arriving home before everyone else was challenging, but having a job with flexible hours helped. However, even when I returned early and completed chores, I never ate with the family or received praise for my cooking. Charles, in particular, often discarded my food without tasting it, deeming it unworthy. Neither William nor Madison ever objected or offered any support. Despite my protests from the kitchen, meal times were usually silent affairs. I couldn't help but wonder if they truly enjoyed eating in such silence. But I can only observe them silently. I had no other option but to get along with my in-laws. I pretended to be friendly and played the role of a devoted wife. I couldn't pinpoint the purpose of it all, but as someone without parents, divorce seemed like an unbearable burden. Then Charles demanded that I hand over all my earnings for the household expenses. I had intended to contribute a portion of my salary, but Charles insisted on all of it, which seemed like an unreasonable demand. What's the point of working if I have no control over my own money? But speaking up was not allowed. Charles's decisions were final, and challenging him wouldn't change anything. It was easier to comply, keeping Charles in a good mood and avoiding the sorrowful looks from Madison and William. Ultimately, the The main source of trouble in this marriage was Charles. Madison and William were not as much of a problem. It was Charles who oppressed and tormented me. It appeared that Madison used to handle the household finances, but it became my responsibility after marriage. Charles, isn't this too much for Grace? Madison dared to question. Shut up, Charles dismissed me in his eyes. Madison and I were treated similarly. As women, our opinions were deemed worthless and not welcomed. I took over the household budget from Madison. When I first saw it, I was shocked, but after several years, I grew accustomed to it. Perhaps because there was another source of income. Charles started spending more extravagantly than before. It's for work, he claimed, increasing his nights out. And the three of them, excluding me, began taking trips during long weekends. They never used to act like this, but suddenly everything changed. He still doesn't see me as part of the family, often referring to me as a burden or worthless. To him, I'm just a maid who doesn't cost anything. In my 20s and 30s, I could brush it off, sometimes even finding peace when Charles wasn't around. But as I neared 40, I couldn't stand his mistreatment any longer. It felt foolish and exhausting to listen to him and obey silently. I grew tired of being afraid of Charles and started standing up for myself. He didn't take kindly to that and gradually grew to resent me. This negative cycle continued to worsen, and recently, my relationship with Charles had deteriorated to the point where we hardly spoke. When he did speak, it was only to insult me. I would fire back, making the atmosphere at home unbearable. It had gotten so bad that he would demand I leave the house. But I refused to go quietly. Where do you expect me to go, knowing I have no family? I would retort every time. Charles would angrily slam his glass on the table, breaking so many that I lost count. Why should I have to deal with this? A woman like you shouldn't talk back. Madison and William would quickly exit the room, sensing another argument brewing. Once it reached this point, it became Charles' one-man show. You should be grateful to even be allowed in this house. Don't get too cocky, you leech, he would rant, his face turning red with anger. We've had this conversation 100 times, I sighed, tired of being yelled at. Normally, I would cave in and apologize. I'm sorry was my usual response, but that day was different. You need to watch what you say, Charles. You're not getting any younger. It's time to calm down. I snapped back sharply, feeling just as irritable. Charles, caught off guard by my defiance, was furious. Who do you think you're talking to? I am the head of this household. A wife like you shouldn't have opinions, he barked. I knew I had crossed a line, but I couldn't stop myself. I've been your wife for years. Isn't it time I'm treated like a human being? You're retired now, with less income. It seems the tables are turning. I continued, unable to contain my pent-up frustration. I confronted Charles directly, and he responded by grabbing me by the collar. I don't need someone like you in my house. I don't want to see your face anymore. Pack your things and leave immediately. He yelled so loudly that the furniture shook. Though I should have apologized right then, I couldn't hold back any longer. Fine, you want me to leave? That's what will make you happy, isn't it, Charles? I challenged him, meeting his gaze defiantly. Yes, he spat out. Unable to remain silent any longer, I declared, then I'll do it. He stormed off to his room with a loud noise, and I, feeling somewhat calmer, began cleaning the living room, which Charles had left in disarray. Madison came to check on me with a worried expression, but left without saying anything, returning to her own room. I realized I had no place in this house anymore. Neither William nor Madison would stand up for me. Years of enduring mistreatment had finally erupted, leaving me feeling more isolated than ever. The next morning, I followed my usual routine, waking up early to start my day. Charles emerged from his room and entered the living room, settling onto the sofa with a newspaper, paying me no mind. Without even glancing up, he casually asked, "Have you finished moving yet?" It was impossible for me to have relocated so swiftly after the events of yesterday. I assumed it was merely a drunken outburst, not a serious demand. Surely he was referring to leaving the house, right? When do you plan on departing? You no longer have the right to reside here. Charles continued, still not meeting my gaze. Halting my task, I turned to face him directly. If he truly intends for me to leave, then I must respond seriously. I'll be gone by today, I declared firmly. Nearby, Madison, frozen with concern, cast a worried glance in my direction. It was evident that once I departed, Charles would refocus his animosity towards her, and she didn't want me to leave. However, Charles had made up his mind. Apologizing and staying was never an option. With a satisfied laugh from Charles echoing behind me, I hurriedly gathered my belongings and left the in-laws' home. Uncertain of my destination, I felt a sense of liberation. I sent a message to William, who was already away. Please proceed with the divorce proceedings. A lawyer would reach out to him. With that, I powered off my phone. In the following days, I engaged a lawyer who reached out to William and the in-laws. Charles, convinced that divorce was inevitable, pressured William to swiftly sign the papers. William hesitated, glancing back and forth between me and the divorce documents. But there was no room for second thoughts. With Charles's insistence and my determination to move forward, he reluctantly complied. I have no money to spare for a woman like you, but dealing with lawyers is a nuisance, so I'll foot the bill, Charles grumbled, his arrogance palpable. The lawyer offered a wry smile at his demeanor. Despite his reluctance, William signed the agreement under Charles's stern gaze. In the presence of the lawyer, I added my signature, and the divorce was finalized. We settled the distribution of assets, and I received compensation for the harassment I had documented. It proved wise to invest in legal support rather than navigate the process alone. Concerned about his reputation, Charles opted to avoid complications by involving lawyers. As the manager of household finances, I was privy to Charles's financial situation, allowing me to propose a settlement within his means. With the property division and harassment compensation settled, I embarked on a comfortable life in my own apartment. While solitude was once daunting, my time living with the in-laws and going through a divorce taught me to appreciate the tranquility of my own space. I relished preparing meals for myself, reveling in the peace of not having anyone to answer to. One day, roughly 3 months post-divorce, Charles's incessant calls flood my phone. Assuming it's nothing positive, I ignore them, but his persistence forces me to accidentally answer. "What have you done to my house?" His voice reverberates loudly, even without the speaker mode. Instinctively, I pull the phone away from my ear. "I haven't done anything. I simply left the house, as you've instructed." I reply defensively. Unsatisfied with my response, Charles continues to berate me. "How can you claim you've done nothing? I'm receiving notifications about withdrawal issues since you left." Ah, so he's upset about the withdrawal problems and blames me. "I don't know. I didn't take any action. I managed everything according to your directives and paid all dues." I respond, a sense of satisfaction creeping in as I understand why Charles is upset. I suppress a grin, relieved he can't see my reaction. That's absurd. Before you arrived, we managed fine with mine, Madison's, and William's incomes. How much were you earning anyway? I recall that I never disclosed my salary details to Charles. $45,000 take home, I reveal. Charles emits a noise akin to a squashed frog before falling silent. In reality, my job in sales at an investment trust firm primarily consisted of commission-based earnings, contingent on the returns I generated for investors. However, much of it vanished due to Charles' extravagant spending. Nonetheless, I had wisely invested my inheritance, generating some additional income. It wasn't a substantial amount, but it helped cover living expenses. I relied on this income to purchase necessities, although during the property distribution, only William's savings were considered. This was because only assets acquired during our marriage were subject to distribution, excluding the inheritance from my parents and its earnings. Since I utilized all earnings for household expenses throughout the marriage, I had no savings accumulated over the years. The Charles family spent money lavishly, unaware that I was compensating for it. You claim you managed before marriage, but was it on par with our current standard of living? I questioned. Charles's frustration finally boiled over. Don't jest. You should continue contributing to our household expenses. You're the one who caused this mess. So you must take responsibility, he retorted angrily. I couldn't help but chuckle at his absurd statement. I could envision Charles's face reddening as he raised his voice. What's the matter? What are you implying? You were the one who insisted I leave, remember? I simply followed your directive. Why should I, no longer a part of the family, continue providing financial support? I replied, half amused, before hearing a loud crash from the other end. Charles must have thrown another fit. The realization that I no longer had to clean up after him almost made me wish for more destruction. Moreover, we're strangers now, not family, not anything. Please refrain from assuming familial obligations. Manage your own finances. I left you with enough to sustain yourself, didn't I? With that, I bid him farewell and disconnected the call. I anticipated more calls from Charles, but none came. I thought perhaps he was feeling remorseful, but it seemed that wasn't the case. Instead, it appeared he was too ashamed to admit he couldn't meet the payments. He resorted to pressuring William and Madison to borrow money from financial institutions to cover their expenses. While payments were made, it only led to accumulating debt. Refusing to adjust their lifestyle, they continued living beyond their means. Continuing like this will only lead to more debt. You need to make changes, I warned, but they persisted, unable to meet their financial obligations and sinking further into debt each month. William reached out to me, foolishly considering reconciliation and even suggesting severing ties with his father to reunite. How could he propose such a thing now, after failing to defend me against Charles's mistreatment? Despite my decision to stand by William, knowing we couldn't have children, he never protected me. His suffocation under Charles' influence is no longer my concern. I wish they would grasp the consequences of their actions and endure the repercussions. Now, the in-laws find themselves burdened by debt yet unwilling to adjust their lifestyle. Charles, now working as a contract laborer with reduced pay, and William and Madison have taken up part-time security positions. It's not just Charles. Madison and William are also guilty of refusing to downsize their living standards. Despite being stretched to their limit, they refuse to make sacrifices. I used to be consumed with protecting William, but now I prioritize my own well-being. At 40, the prospect of having children may be challenging, but I remain open to the possibility. Before the divorce, mornings felt like a burden, but now I wake up feeling rejuvenated. I eagerly anticipate a brighter future in my newfound independence.
Hey, where are you? I've been waiting forever. We promised to submit the marriage papers today, didn't we? 30 minutes had passed since the scheduled time, and Kyle still hadn't shown up at the city office. Frustrated, I finally called him.
Seriously? You've been waiting all this time? Marriage? That was a joke. There's no way I'm marrying you.
Wait. What? You're kidding, right? Today, on what was supposed to be the luckiest day on the calendar, we had planned to officially get married. I had marked the date with a red pen on the calendar and eagerly counted down the days. But all of my genuine hopes and dreams were shattered by none other than Kyle himself. Suddenly, the call switched to video. When I looked at the screen, I saw Kyle grinning maliciously. Behind him, I could see his coworkers from the same department laughing hysterically. And to my shock, among them was Avery, someone I had thought was my best friend.
A country bumpkin like you should be thankful that you even got to dream about marriage.
I'm going to marry Avery. You're useless to me now. Let's break up.
It hit me then that everything had been planned from the start. Fine, I'll break up with you. Shaking with anger and betrayal, I managed to force those words out. But deep inside, I vowed to take revenge on everyone who mocked me. My name is Sarah. I've always been shy and avoided interacting with people, spending most of my childhood alone. Plain, quiet, invisible. Those were the labels people always attached to me. Even after becoming an adult, my daily life was nothing but a dull routine of commuting between work and home. I had barely ever talked to men, let alone dreamed of finding a boyfriend or getting married. But one day, things took an unexpected turn. One of my few friends from school, Avery, introduced me to a guy. His name was Kyle, and he was a co-worker of Avery's.
He said he fell in love with you at first sight after seeing you in town.
He fell for me at first sight? I couldn't believe it. Compared to Avery, I was far plainer and didn't know much about fashion. There had to be some mistake. But since Avery insisted I at least talk to him, I reluctantly agreed to meet Kyle. Despite my initial hesitation, Kyle made a good first impression. Maybe it was because Avery had told me he was also inexperienced in relationships and nervous about confessing his feelings. With Avery acting as a go-between, Kyle and I started dating with marriage in mind.
I need to renew my lease soon. If it's okay with you, why don't we move in together?
Not long after we started dating, Kyle and I began living together. Looking back, it was impulsive to start living together so soon. But I was too excited about my first boyfriend to think it through. However, once we started living together, Kyle's odd behavior began to surface.
Hey, why didn't you do what I asked you to do?
Kyle's angry voice echoed through the house early in the morning. Apparently, he was upset because I hadn't ironed his shirt properly. Sorry, I was so busy with work yesterday. I meant to do it, but I forgot. Can you wear a different shirt today? My work had been hectic, and it ended up working overtime yesterday. Although I rushed home to prepare dinner, I had forgotten to iron his shirt. There were plenty of other shirts in the closet. When I suggested he wear one of those, Kyle's expression turned sour.
What? I plan to wear that shirt today. Just iron it now. Or are you seriously telling me to wear a wrinkled shirt?
Well, I don't have time. I still need to get ready, and if I iron it now, I'll be late for work.
Not my problem. Household chores are your responsibility, so just do them right. Oh, and am hungry. Make me breakfast first. God, you're so useless.
Kyle's demands were selfish and completely lacked consideration for me. He was always like this, bossing me around and giving orders as he pleased. His attitude was less like that of a boyfriend and more like someone giving orders to a servant or a housekeeper. But since he was my first boyfriend, I put up with it, desperate not to be disliked. One day, Kyle said he wanted to eat my cooking for the first time in a while. Recently, he had been coming home late, claiming he was busy with work, so we hadn't had dinner together in ages. Hearing his request made me happy. I'll put my heart into it and make something special.
Good. I'll come home early tonight.
Thrilled by our rare, romantic interaction, I started thinking about what to cook. After finishing work quickly, I stopped by the grocery store on my way home and bought plenty of ingredients. I'll make all of Kyle's favorite dishes. He'll definitely be happy. Looking back, we had been out of sync ever since we started living together. I hoped that today could be the turning point to get back to how we used to be. As I cooked, I wished for that with all my heart. What's going on? He's so late. Is his work running long? I finished cooking and waited for Kyle to come home. He had promised to come home early today, yet even past 9 p.m., he still hadn't returned. The carefully prepared dinner I set on the table had already gone cold. Worried he might have been in an accident, I called his phone several times, but he didn't pick up. Should I call the police? As I sat alone in the room debating, Kyle finally contacted me. Hello, Kyle. Where are you right now? The answer I got was unbelievable.
I'm out drinking with coworkers.
Drinking? But you said you'd come home early because you wanted to eat my cooking.
I got invited last minute. What was I supposed to do?
Kyle sounded unapologetic, completely indifferent to how I felt. His tone made it clear he didn't think he had done anything wrong.
I can eat your cooking anytime. Of course, it'd prioritize going out for drinks. Guys have their own social obligations, you know. You wouldn't get it. Anyway, I'm hanging up.
Kyle hung up abruptly, leaving me stunned. After that, he started going out drinking without letting me know more and more often. He also frequently asked me for extra cash, saying, I've got important social obligations. We had agreed to split the living expenses 50-50 when we moved in together, but Kyle started dodging his share.
I need money for my social life. You could at least cover the household expenses. Not like you'd understand, who don't have any friends. Let's be real, no one but me would ever put up with someone like you.
By this point, Kyle didn't even bother hiding his condescending attitude toward me. Was I really going to marry this man? But as Kyle said, someone as lonely and plain as me might never find another person willing to date me. With that thought, I couldn't muster the strength to stand up for myself, no matter how unfairly he treated me. One day, something happened that deepened my doubts about Kyle even further. Ugh, why does he always leave his clothes lying around? How can anyone be so messy? While Kyle was taking a bath after work, I picked up the clothes he had carelessly thrown on the floor of the bathroom. Kyle had a habit of leaving his clothes all over the place. If I didn't clean up after him, the house would become a total mess. As I gathered the clothes to put them in the laundry, I noticed something off. What's this smell? It wasn't detergent or body odor. It was an unpleasant scent that made my nose wrinkle. It was women's perfume. The strong scent was coming from the clothes Kyle had just taken off. As I inspected the shirt more closely, I spotted lipstick smudged on the collar. Could this be cheating? The undeniable evidence of another woman drained the color from my face. Determined, I confronted Kyle as he came out of the bathroom.
Huh. Someone must be bumped into me on the train, and that's how the lipstick got there. What are you accusing me of?
Kyle laughed it off, denying he had cheated. But the perfume smell.
Everyone wears perfume. The smell must be rubbed off from somewhere. What? Are you doubting me? Do you even have any proof?
No, never mind. I'm sorry for accusing you. When I apologized, Kyle sulked and accused me of being the worst for doubting him. Then he stomped out of the house in anger. Since I didn't have concrete evidence, I couldn't push the issue further, which was frustrating. But my instincts told me something was definitely off about Kyle. I think Kyle might be cheating on me. Unable to keep it to myself, I reached out to my friend Avery to talk about Kyle. I told her everything, his unreasonable behavior, and the suspicious signs of another woman.
You're just being too sensitive. Try to be more easygoing.
Avery brushed off my concerns, saying it was wrong to doubt men so easily. But I don't know if I should keep dating Kyle.
Wow, you're being so weak. If you put in more effort, Kyle will change. To be loved, you have to work harder, Sarah.
Avery told me to endure everything quietly, no matter what happened.
Honestly, Sarah, you're so naive. Women should just stay quiet and obey their men.
Yeah, you're right. I'll do my best, just like you said. Reluctantly, I nodded in agreement with Avery's advice. Following Avery's advice, I stopped arguing with Kyle and started obeying him, no matter what he said. On the surface, peaceful days seemed to continue after that. But that peace came at the expense of me constantly walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting Kyle. No matter how exhausted I was from work, as soon as I got home, I had to tiptoe around his moods and comply with his unreasonable demands without complaint. It's like I'm a slave. What had started as a hopeful cohabitation with my first boyfriend had now turned into a living hell for me. But perhaps because of my constant endurance, Kyle one day brought up the idea of getting married.
Let's get married soon. When would be a good day to file the paperwork?
I couldn't believe those words were coming from Kyle, and I was over the moon with joy. All my patience wasn't for nothing. Avery was right. Keeping quiet and enduring really was the answer. Kyle and I decided to submit the paperwork 10 days later, on what was supposed to be a lucky day. I marked the date on the calendar with a red pen and eagerly counted down the days. But my innocent dreams of marriage were shattered by none other than Kyle himself. 10 days later, we agreed to meet in front of the city office to submit the paperwork. Suppressing my excitement, I waited for Kyle. I still couldn't believe someone like me, who had no connection to romance, was about to get married. Of course, I had my worries about life with Kyle. But I convinced myself that, as Avery had said, Kyle would change after marriage. That's how I stayed positive. Even when the appointed time came, Kyle didn't show up. For a moment, I wondered if he'd gotten the date wrong, but I had checked the calendar countless times. There was no way I was mistaken. After waiting for 30 minutes past the meeting time, I finally called Kyle. Hey, where are you? I've been waiting in front of the office this whole time.
Seriously? You've been waiting all this time? The marriage thing was a lie. I'm not marrying you.
Wait, what? You're joking, right? As I asked, the call suddenly switched to video. On the screen, I saw Kyle grinning maliciously. Behind him, his coworkers from the same department were laughing hysterically. And to my shock, among them was Avery, the friend I thought I could trust. What's going on? Where are you guys?
We're in Hawaii. Took some PTO for a little department vacation.
Do you even know what today is? And Hawaii, you didn't say a word about this to me.
Bug, you're so annoying. You're useless to me now. Let's break up.
Wait, please explain.
This should make it clear, even for someone as clueless as you. Look.
With that, Kyle showed me Avery's left hand, where a ring sparkled on her ring finger.
Thanks to you, I managed to save a ton of money while we were living together. I used it to buy Avery a great ring.
Let's not have sex before marriage. I want to cherish you. Ha! You fell for that hook, line, and sinker. You were just a maid and a cash cow to me.
According to Kyle and Avery, our relationship was just a ruse to save up money for their wedding. From the very beginning of our relationship, Kyle had said, let's not have any physical intimacy before marriage, and we maintained a pure relationship. I had wholeheartedly believed it was because of his kindness. However, Kyle had never intended to date me seriously or marry me from the very beginning. He used me as a convenient housekeeper, made me pay for living expenses, and secretly saved up money for Avery's ring.
You should be happy you even got to dream about marriage, considering how plain you are.
It was exhausting having to put up with you every day, even for the money.
Behind them, their coworkers laughed hysterically.
How could you not notice?
You're way too naive.
I didn't need them to tell me. I was already overwhelmed with shame and anger. Shame for having been deceived by a friend and anger at myself for loving such a terrible man. After all this, my feelings for Kyle vanished in an instant. Fine, I'll break up with you. With a trembling voice, I squeezed out those words.
Glad you're being reasonable. See ya. Next time, find someone in your league. Though I doubt anyone would want a boring woman like you.
Kyle threw those final, cutting words at me before hanging up. 2 days later, after returning from their vacation, Kyle and his group were unexpectedly summoned to the CEO's office. Everyone who went to Hawaii was called in, and they were visibly anxious about what the CEO might say. Among them, Kyle and Avery were acting particularly suspicious for one reason. They noticed me standing next to the CEO. Noticing me standing next to the CEO made Kyle freeze.
Why are you here?
It wasn't me who answered his question. It was the CEO.
Sarah is my daughter.
With that one sentence, everyone's faces went pale.
Your daughter? But you have a different last name.
Kyle wasn't wrong. My father and I do have different last names. That's because my parents divorced when I was a child. Even after the divorce, my father and I met regularly and maintained a close relationship, even sharing meals as adults. Of course, I had told him about Kyle, but I intentionally didn't reveal that my father was the CEO. I figured it would make Kyle overly self-conscious. Dad, take a look at this. I had recorded the humiliating video call from the other day and showed the footage to my father. The video clearly captured the faces of everyone in the department enjoying their vacation in Hawaii. As he watched them mocking me with cruel expressions, my father looked saddened but said firmly,
You're all fired. Don't bother coming in tomorrow.
What? That's impossible.
Although my father's company had been growing its revenue recently, there were also plans to downsize. According to Asia, the department Kyle belonged to had a terrible reputation both inside and outside the company due to their behavior. While that alone wasn't enough grounds for dismissal, their mistreatment of me provided the perfect excuse to shut the entire department down.
It's convenient that all of you were in the same department. You'll pay for disrespecting my daughter.
My father announced that everyone present would face either termination or an equivalent penalty. To think that the plain woman they had mocked turned out to be the CEO's daughter. Even though they hadn't known, the gravity of what they had done left everyone trembling with fear.
I had nothing to do with this.
Avery was the first to deny her involvement. She was likely betraying Kyle in an attempt to save herself and remain with the company.
You're the one who suggested it in the first place.
Kyle snapped back, hurling the ring he had given her onto the floor.
If you guys hadn't egged me on, I wouldn't have done something so stupid. Take responsibility for this.
Kyle then began blaming the other coworkers, refusing to acknowledge his own guilt. The room devolved into chaos as everyone started shouting that they weren't at fault, eventually breaking into a brawl. It was hard to believe that these same people had been so cheerful during their Hawaiian getaway. They had only bonded over looking down on someone weaker than them, and their unity crumbled the moment things went wrong. Watching their ugly fight unfold, completely forgetting they were in the CEO's office, my father sighed deeply.
You all seem to enjoy physical activity. Fine. I'll spare you from being outright fired. I just remembered a workplace that's perfect for you.
Relieved, they stopped fighting, thinking they had avoided the worst. But the perfect workplace turned out to be far from ideal. Everyone in the department that had mocked me was sent to a grueling mining site in South Africa under the guise of training. There, they were subjected to backbreaking labor, extracting minerals for the company.
If you don't like it, you're free to quit anytime.
My father had told them before they left. However, quitting wasn't an option once they arrived. A month later, Kyle called me from South Africa, begging for help. I regretted not blocking his number, but reluctantly answered the call. He explained that for security reasons, their phones were confiscated on site, and he had to sneak out of the dormitory to find a payphone. Even finding that payphone had taken him 5 nights of walking continuously.
Why do I have to go through this?
Hearing Kyle's repeated complaints, I felt no pity for him. If anything, considering how he had treated me, I thought it wasn't nearly enough punishment. Kyle did have access to adequate food and rest. But whenever he complained about the harsh conditions, the local staff scolded him in their language, asking what he had to complain about.
I can't communicate with anyone. The food doesn't suit me, and the beds in the dorms are moldy. I can't stand this anymore. Please, talk to the CEO and get me out of here.
Apparently, morale at the mining site was at an all-time low. Avery, in particular, was spared from physical labor but was put in charge of cooking for the workers. Preparing 3 meals a day for over 100 people had her in tears, constantly begging to go home. Have you learned your lesson?
Yes, of course. I'm truly sorry. If I can come home, I'll do whatever you say.
All right, I'll talk to my father about bringing you back.
Really? Sarah, you're a lifesaver.
Kyle sobbed and thanked me profusely, his tone completely different from the arrogant and dismissive man he had once been. The harsh labor had clearly broken him. After some time, they were finally allowed to return to the US. When Kyle and the others came back, they were so physically and emotionally drained that they didn't even have the energy to protest to the CEO. As for Avery, her once beautifully maintained long hair was now disheveled and filthy with dust and dirt. Her skin had deteriorated, and she looked as though she had aged 10 years.
Good job on the training.
When they returned, my father greeted them with kind words and even provided showers and a lavish meal to welcome them back. Feeling pampered by the generous treatment, they seemed to forget why they had ended up in South Africa in the first place, laughing and celebrating.
You seem refreshed. Now, Kyle, I have a gift for you.
Huh? I get something?
Feeling emboldened by the luxurious treatment, Kyle leaned forward eagerly, hanging on to my father's words. My father took out his phone and began making a call. Kyle, his eyes brimming with expectation, watched closely. Was it money? Or perhaps something else? Having endured such grueling training, Kyle clearly believed he deserved a reward. About 20 minutes later, while they were enjoying drinks and high spirits, a group of people arrived. When they saw who had come, everyone froze. It was the police. The officers approached Kyle and abruptly restrained him.
What's going on? What did I do?
Kyle struggled in confusion, but with two officers holding him firmly, he couldn't break free. As Kyle, still bewildered, tried to process what was happening, my father stepped forward and spoke coldly.
I forgot to mention, I reported you to the police for marriage fraud.
What? Why? I thought you forgave me.
Normally, proving marriage fraud is difficult, but Kyle had left behind plenty of evidence, including video recordings of his plans to deceive me from the start.
I didn't do anything. This is a wrongful arrest. Get me a lawyer.
Kyle desperately denied the accusations, but then an unexpected betrayal occurred.
It's true. He intended to deceive Sarah from the beginning. We were just dragged into it. Right.
His co-workers all claimed they were uninvolved and pinned the blame entirely on Kyle.
Yeah, that's right. He's the real culprit.
Even Avery, in an attempt to save herself, turned on Kyle and pointed him out to the police.
Remember this, all of you. I will never forgive you.
Betrayed by Avery and his co-workers, Kyle turned red with anger and shouted at them. But no matter how loudly he protested, it couldn't absolve him of his guilt. Kyle was dragged away by the police, spewing parting threats. Eventually, Kyle was convicted of marriage fraud. Although it was his first offense and his sentence was relatively short, he still served time in prison. As for Avery and the other co-workers, they were all demoted to a notorious isolation department within the company, known as the banishment room, and eventually resigned. After leaving the company, Avery tried to find a new job, but bad rumors about her spread quickly, and no reputable company would hire her. Desperate to make a living, she took up night work. But her beauty, once her asset, had faded significantly due to her harsh time in South Africa. As a result, she struggled to gain popularity, and the younger workers at her establishment mocked her as an unpopular, annoying old woman. Avery reportedly blames me for her downfall and often complains to others about her misfortune, but no one pays her any attention. It was all her own doing, as she had plotted with Kyle to take advantage of me. Avery will likely continue her life at rock bottom, harboring resentment toward me without ever reflecting on her actions. As for me, I left the company where I had been working and now work as my father's secretary. I buried myself in work to forget the painful events of the past.
Have you met anyone new?
My father would occasionally ask me this, but I was completely done with men. Or so I thought, until my father introduced me to someone. He was a promising figure at the company's Paris branch, well regarded as a rising star within the organization.
His character is impeccable. I personally vouch for him.
Reluctantly, I started spending time with him, going out for meals and occasionally spending weekends together. As my father had said, he was incredibly sincere and had an earnest personality that began to win me over. However, I found myself haunted by a certain trauma.
No one would ever want a plain woman like you.
The words Kyle had once said to me kept flashing through my mind. Noticing my hesitation about the relationship, he gently asked if I would share the reason with him. Summoning my courage, I opened up to him about how I had been deceived by a man in the past. He listened and told me that, given my experience, it was perfectly natural to be cautious around men. He then reassured me that he would wait as long as it took for my heart to heal. Why was he so kind to someone like me? What could he possibly see in me? Because of how much Kyle had crushed my self-esteem, I even began to doubt his kindness. But true to his word, he waited patiently while I worked through my trauma. Our calm and understanding relationship continued, and eventually I became confident that I could trust him. I started thinking about marriage and decided to propose to him myself. He happily accepted, and we decided to get married. A year after our wedding, we were blessed with twins, and now we live happily together. My father is completely smitten with his first grandchildren and often visits our home to spend time with them. The stern man who always wore a serious expression at work now softens his face completely when he's around the babies. Seeing that is heartwarming beyond words. Even after giving birth, I've continued to work, sharing household and parenting responsibilities with my husband. I am endlessly grateful to him for saying, "We're both working, so let's support each other and live as a team." Kyle, the man I once lived with, never once said anything like that to me. Though the pain of being betrayed by Kyle and Avery hasn't fully healed, I can't dwell on it forever. I've resolved to move forward, embracing my new family and living a bright, joyful life.
I don't want to see your face, and I don't even care about your congratulations. Why did you bother coming to the house?
With that, Noah snatched the envelope containing the wedding gift right out of my hand. "What's with your attitude? I came all this way to celebrate your wedding."
You didn't need to bring it in person. You could have just mailed the gift. Now you're done, so get out now.
He waved his hand dismissively, trying to shoo me away. Unable to hold back my frustration at Noah's heartless behavior, I decided to give him some advice for his future as his family. "Noah, you've always had short-lived relationships with women, haven't you? If you don't change your behavior, your marriage is bound to fail too. Noah's face turned sour.
Shut up. Mind your own business. Anyway, I'll take the gift. But just so you know, I've never thought of you as my family. Got it? Don't ever come back here again.
With that, Noah kicked me out. As I left, officially disowned, I muttered to myself, "So, this is it. Being disowned. Finally, I'm free from that family." Overjoyed, I got into my car, and before starting the engine, I eagerly pulled out my phone. Then, brimming with excitement, I made a call to a certain place. My name is Catherine, and I was born as the eldest daughter of a family that has been farming for generations in a small rural town. I have an older brother, Noah, who is 2 years my senior. Being the eldest son, Noah was raised in an overly protective way. As a result, he developed a somewhat arrogant personality. There was a clear difference in the way our parents treated Noah and me. For Noah's birthday, they would prepare cakes and feasts and throw grand parties. But on my birthday, even though I was supposed to be the center of attention, Noah would say,
"I want to go to an amusement park that day."
To my disbelief, my parents would agree to his request and take him to the amusement park, leaving me behind at home to watch the house.
Why do Dad and Mom always listen to Noah?
Growing up like this, I was hurt from an early age. And while Noah was sent to college, I was told to find a job immediately after graduating from high school and was kicked out of the house as soon as I started working. Even as a child, Noah would occasionally bully me.
Stop it, Noah. That hurts. Mom, Noah is hitting me.
I turned to my mom, Monica, for help, but she hardly listened to me and always took Noah's side.
You must have done something to upset Noah, Catherine. It's all your fault.
With those words, my mom never stood up for me. My dad was completely submissive to my mom and had no real presence in the family, as she held all the authority. One day, my mom said this to me.
Catherine, the way you talk sometimes is so much like Ashley. How irritating.
Ashley was my grandmother, my mom's mother-in-law. Apparently, my expressions and tone when I voiced complaints were strikingly similar to my late grandmother's. Mom had always disliked my grandmother and had practically abandoned her in a care facility during her final years. Maybe my mom saw my grandmother in me and treated me coldly because of it.
If I didn't remind her of Grandma, would she have treated me better?
Time went on, and my dad passed away. With his death, Noah inherited the family estate and became even more arrogant than before. Whenever I visited home, he would say things like,
Hey, this is my house now. If you, an outsider, want to stay here, you need to pay $500 a night.
He would also charge me for meals, even when it was just cheap microwave dinners.
Meal costs are $100 per meal.
No way. I'm not paying that. That's ridiculous. Of course, I never paid, because why should I have to pay such outrageous fees to stay at my own family home? Meanwhile, my mom would demand monthly financial support from me.
Catherine, do you know how much it costs to raise you? Who do you think you have to thank for getting this far?
Faced with that, I couldn't argue back. As a result, I reluctantly send money every month. At one point, she even asked me to pay for repairs to part of the house that had been damaged. Meanwhile, Noah used the inheritance from Dad to buy a car and take trips with Mom. Sure, I owe them for raising me, but why am I the only one who's been kicked out and still has to send money? Eventually, I started dreading visits to my childhood home. Even though Noah didn't take over the family farm, he must have a job somewhere. Yet strangely, my mom's demands for money kept increasing. Noah inherited the house and the land, so why am I being asked for so much money? This is seriously strange. According to relatives, it seemed that Noah was blowing through his salary as soon as he earned it and had even spent all of Dad's inheritance. On top of that, he had used the inherited farmland as collateral to take out loans from a finance company. When I found out, I couldn't stay silent and confronted Noah. Noah, don't you think you're being way too reckless with money? You need to be more careful with how you spend it.
Shut up. You don't know anything about my situation, so stop complaining about how I use my money, you annoying woman.
Noah hated having these kinds of conversations with me. As usual, Mom, who was listening, chimed in with something absurd.
You should pay off Noah's debt.
Why should I? Of course, I argued back. However, Mom ordered me to pay it.
Noah is the eldest son, so it's the family's duty to cover his debts.
By the way, I was already married at this point. I turned to my husband, James, for advice. Hey James, I need to talk to you. Mom told me I should pay off Noah's debt because it's a family obligation. What should I do? James knew all about my family situation. After hearing the story, he sympathized with me and said,
Your family never changes, Catherine.
He was frustrated with both Noah and Mom, who couldn't stand up to him, but he still offered to help because they were technically my family. Thanks, James. I'm sorry for always dragging you into this. Around that time, my mom's chronic back pain worsened.
It hurts. I can't even move like this.
Due to her back pain, Mom could neither get up nor move around, but Noah refused to take care of her, using his job as an excuse.
I have a job, so I can't take care of Mom or do errands for her. Besides, that's women's work, isn't it?
With that, Noah dumped the responsibility for her care and transportation onto me, even though I lived over 2 hours away by car. Even if he says that, I have a job too, so it's impossible for me. Still, I couldn't just leave Mom in such a helpless state, so I decided to hire a caregiver. When Noah found out, he said this to me.
You're the worst. How could you shove a family member's care onto a stranger? Is taking care of her really that much of a hassle for you?
I was unfairly criticized by Noah for hiring help. One day, I got a rare phone call from my mom. Hello, what's up? When I asked, she told me that Noah was getting married.
Noah is getting married, so make sure you send a proper wedding gift, okay? Oh, and we're having a wedding, but Noah is the star of the show, and you're busy, right? You don't have to come, but don't forget to send the gift.
Even though she said that, I decided to visit home to show my face as a family member. Noah had always been popular with women since his school days. But because of his personality, his relationships never lasted long. When I went back home to congratulate him, Noah greeted me in his usual tone.
Oh, Catherine. Didn't Mom tell you there was no need to come? What are you even doing here?
Despite his unpleasant attitude, I held back my frustration and replied since I was there to celebrate. Noah, you're getting married, right? So I wanted to congratulate you in person and brought a wedding gift. However, Noah responded sarcastically.
You could have just sent the gift. I don't want to see your face, and I don't even care about your congratulations. Why did you bother coming?
He then snatched the gift envelope from my hand.
Well, now you've done what you came for, right?
With that, he waved his hand dismissively, trying to shoo me out. Unable to tolerate Noah's heartless behavior any longer, I couldn't help but complain. What's with your attitude? I came all this way to celebrate your wedding. Feeling it was my duty as family, I decided to give him some advice, even if it wasn't my place. Noah, you've always had short-lived relationships with women, right? If you don't change your behavior, your marriage might fail soon. Noah's face darkened.
Stop nagging. Mind your own business.
I'm saying this is family. With a personality like yours, I can't help but worry about your marriage. I feel sorry for your wife.
What? As my family, you say?
Noah smirked and laughed.
I've never thought of you as my family, not once.
What? I froze at his words.
I will take the gift, but just so you know, I've never considered you part of this family.
I see.
Yeah, now get out. And don't ever come back here again. You're not family, remember?
Never come back? Are you saying we're done for good? I asked for confirmation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now get out.
With that, Noah kicked me out. So, this is it. Being disowned. After being told I was disowned, I got into my car and muttered to myself. Finally, I'm free from that family. Out of Noah's sight, I secretly celebrated with my joy. After getting into the car, before even starting the engine, I took a certain action. Well, first, I need to call that place. Saying that, I picked up the phone and called a certain finance company. I told them that I would no longer be paying off Noah's debts. Because I've been disowned. Until now, I only paid because I was told it was my responsibility as his family. After finishing the call, I smiled and muttered to myself. Now I don't have to cover Noah's debts anymore since we're no longer family. Ye for being disowned. Relieved to be free from Noah's massive debt, I cheerfully started the car and drove off. A little while later, I passed a car from the finance company heading toward the family home. Could they be on their way to Noah's place to collect? Though curious about the car, I continued straight home. When I arrived and checked my phone, I saw more than 10 missed calls from Noah. Why so many calls? Well, I can guess what it's about. I decided to call him back. The moment he picked up, Noah yelled at me.
You. Do you realize what you've done?
Noah was furious. What do you mean, what I've done? I asked innocently. It turned out that after my call, the finance company decided to take drastic action and went to the family home. Realizing Noah's inability to pay, they probably felt the need to act urgently to recover their loan. When the debt collectors suddenly showed up at the house, Noah was caught off guard.
Debt collectors. This is bad. They look tough, and I don't have the money to pay them right now. This is serious.
Feeling the pressure, Noah abandoned Mom, who was bedridden with back pain, and escaped the house on his own. As he ran off, the debt collectors, laughing, approached the immobile Mom.
Hey, he just left her behind. What a terrible son.
Noah, please wait. Don't leave me here.
However, Noah ignored Mom's screams as the men approached her and desperately ran away. Once he was in a safe place, he contacted me.
Because of you, the debt collectors came to the house. Now I'm on the run from them. What are you going to do about it?
Noah directed his anger at me. What do you mean, because of me? It's your fault for racking up such massive debt in the first place. I refused to back down and argued back. Besides, I'm not family anymore, so your debts have nothing to do with me. I don't see why I should take any complaints about them. I added sarcastically.
Shut up.
And you're an adult, Noah. You should be able to handle this on your own. I dismissed him coldly. Noah couldn't argue back and ended the call, muttering angrily under his breath. From what I heard later, Noah managed to evade the debt collectors that day, but just barely. The next day, the debt collectors showed up at Noah's workplace. Naturally, this caused a huge inconvenience for his coworkers. Because of Noah's debt, the workplace's operations were disrupted. Seeing the debt collectors at his workplace, Noah panicked.
Debt collectors here. My coworkers will find out about my debt.
It turned out Noah hadn't just borrowed from legitimate financial institutions. He had also taken out loans from loan sharks. The intimidating-looking men approached Noah.
Sorry for bothering you here. Maybe we can talk outside.
Noah tried to defuse the situation, but the loan sharks loudly demanded repayment right there, exposing his debt to everyone around. His coworkers started whispering among themselves and giving him cold looks, which Noah could clearly feel. Hearing the commotion, Noah's boss frowned. Already dissatisfied with Noah's work ethic, the boss, upon learning about his significant debt, said this.
Having someone in debt like this involved in company operations isn't ideal. It's a matter of trust.
With the disruption caused by the loan sharks and the impact on the workplace, Noah was handed a termination notice.
I've been fired. From my job.
But that wasn't the end of the ordeal. Noah called me again, this time in desperation. What is it now? I answered the phone sounding annoyed, and Noah pleaded with me.
Catherine, help me. Mom's been taken by them.
When I asked, Noah explained that when the loan sharks came to the house, he fled, leaving Mom behind. As a result, she was taken as a hostage and was now under their supervision. Mom's been taken by loan sharks? Noah, you're unbelievable. What are you even doing? Despite my frustration, I couldn't ignore the situation. But I can't just leave this alone. What should I do? Is Mom okay? I consulted my husband, James. After hearing the situation, James thought carefully.
This isn't something we can handle ourselves. You can't fight loan sharks and expect to win.
With that, James reported the matter to the police and explained the situation. Thanks to his report, the police took over handling the loan sharks. Thank goodness. With the police involved, Mom should be safe. However, Noah still had to repay the legitimate loans. Unable to come up with the money to repay his debts, Noah decided to use his last resort: selling the house.
Well, I guess I have no choice. I'll have to sell the house.
To discuss selling the house, Noah went to a real estate agency.
Excuse me, I'd like to sell my house.
We can't proceed with the transaction unless the registered owner is present. Since you're not the owner, we can't purchase the house from you.
As the discussion progressed, the real estate company refused the sale. They told Noah he would need to bring the registered owner if he wanted to sell the house.
They said, I can't sell this house.
It turned out that the house was in my name. There was a reason for this. When the old family home had become too rundown to live in, Mom, as usual, demanded money from me to rebuild.
We can't live in that decrepit old house anymore. We need to build a new one. Of course, Catherine will cover the costs, right?
Hearing this, James said,
Well, since it's Monica's request, I suppose we can.
With that, James paid for the new house in my name. Since I was the registered owner, Noah couldn't sell the house, and he was frustrated that things didn't go as he had planned.
Those two always have to interfere with everything.
But the fact was, it had been Mom's wish to rebuild the house. Since Noah, the heir, was already in debt, he couldn't pass the loan application process, so the ownership was transferred to me. Noah should have known this all along. We paid almost the entire cost of the house. At least it couldn't be sold off without my permission. But Noah didn't care about any of that. He arrogantly tried to sell the house anyway, and his plan failed.
This is ridiculous. It's the house I've lived in since I was a kid. I should be able to do whatever I want with it.
No matter how much he complained, he couldn't sell the house. His plans completely fell apart. With the house sale blocked and his savings running dry, Noah turned to his partner, Emma, for money.
Hey, Emma, please. Can you lend me some money?
Emma's parents were business owners and wealthy. Noah had targeted Emma, seeing her as a way to secure a comfortable life.
So Emma is from a rich family. If we get married, life will be so much easier.
With his polished exterior, Noah managed to fool Emma. However, Emma's employer was none other than my husband, James. As the discussions about their marriage progressed, Emma started having doubts about continuing with the relationship.
I believe James' wife is Noah's sister, right? I actually have something I want to consult with you about regarding my partner, Noah.
Emma sought James' advice about Noah. I was asked to join one of their discussions as well. It seemed Emma had started to notice Noah's character flaws, though she was hesitant to fully admit it.
I hate that I can't fully trust my partner, but something about Noah's personality keeps bothering me.
Perhaps Emma was hoping we'd reassure her that Noah was actually a good person, giving her the confidence to ignore her doubts. However, James and I, thinking of Emma's well-being, decided to be honest. As his sister, I hate to say this, but I think it would be better if you didn't go through with this. Emma, aren't you already aware of Noah's personality?
I don't like to speak ill of others either, but honestly, I think marrying Noah isn't a good idea.
We expressed our reservations about Noah and Emma's marriage. However, Emma didn't expect Noah's own family to speak poorly of him and oppose the marriage, which made her take a defensive stance and try to protect Noah instead.
That's not true. He is kind, you know? Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses.
She stubbornly tried to defend him. Maybe he's kind to you now, but eventually Noah will show his true colors. But Emma shook her head.
Still, he proposed to me, and I want to try believing in him a little longer.
Trying to push aside her doubts, Emma insisted on moving forward with the wedding plans. When I heard about the upcoming wedding, I sighed. If that's what Emma wants, then I guess there's nothing we can do.
Honestly, I wanted to stop the wedding. Maybe Emma didn't expect us to speak so harshly about Noah.
Since she had made up her mind, we decided to support her. However, Noah turned out to be an even bigger problem than Emma had imagined. The situation became so bad that Emma was at her wit's end.
I can't do this. There's no way I can marry someone like him. I didn't realize how awful he was. Oh, I should have listened to you too.
Just before the wedding, Emma finally realized how terrible Noah's character was and came crying to James and me.
I'm so sorry for not taking your advice back then. I didn't realize he was this bad. I wanted to believe in him.
As we listened, Emma revealed something shocking. Noah had been showing up at her parents' house every night, demanding money. Persistently ringing the doorbell, Noah pleaded,
Hey Emma, come on. Your partner is in trouble here. Just lend me some money.
This put Emma and her parents, who lived with her, in a difficult position.
What should we do? He's here again.
Hey, are you listening? Please, I'm begging you.
The thought that Noah might show up again tonight to demand money terrified Emma.
I had no idea he had so much debt. What are we going to do? At this rate, he's going to drain our family's assets.
Crying, Emma came to James and me for advice.
At this point, I think you should hire a lawyer and call off the engagement. Considering the circumstances, they should be able to help you.
Reflecting on her situation, Emma decided to follow James' advice. Through a lawyer, Emma officially notified Noah of the engagement cancellation.
Calling off the engagement. Damn it. Who's behind this?
Furious about the broken engagement, Noah stormed over to me and accused me.
Hey, Catherine. You must be said something to Emma, didn't you? It's your fault she called off my engagement.
Hearing Noah's yelling, James rushed to see what was going on. While Noah acted tough with me, his demeanor completely changed when he saw James, the CEO of the company.
Oh, James. It's such an honor to see you.
Noah started groveling, trying to gauge James' mood. Seeing this, James coldly asked,
Noah, what's all this commotion about?
Oh, I'm sorry for raising my voice. By the way, James, I have a favor to ask.
With that, Noah suddenly began to plead.
Please hire me. I need a job.
Excuse me?
James was taken aback by Noah's sudden request. Of course, there was no way James would hire someone like Noah.
I lost my job because of my debts, and now I have nowhere else to go. Please, I'm begging you.
James and I were completely fed up.
I've heard plenty about you from Catherine. There's no way it'd hire someone like you.
Catherine, what lies have you been telling James about me?
Noah glared at me resentfully.
Please leave. You're causing a disturbance.
With that, James forced Noah out.
Wait. Please, James. I'm begging you.
Noah tried to cling to James, but James ignored him and firmly shut the door. Meanwhile, Mom, who had been rescued from the loan sharks, was placed in a senior care facility thanks to James' arrangements.
So, Mom's safe. That's a relief.
Noah looked visibly relieved to hear about her safety. Noah went to visit Mom.
If Mom's gone, I won't be able to get her savings.
His concern wasn't about Mom's well-being, but rather the small amount of savings she had left.
Hey, Mom, it's me. I'm so glad you're okay.
However, Mom was deeply frightened by being abducted and held captive by the loan sharks, and the stress and emotional shock she experienced until her rescue were immense. As a result, she had started to develop dementia. When Mom saw Noah's face, she looked at him curiously and said,
Oh, who are you?
Mom had completely forgotten her son's face.
No way, Mom. You don't even remember your own son?
Noah grabbed her shoulders in disbelief, but even then, Mom couldn't recall who he was.
Stop it. Don't be rough with me.
She pushed his hands away, clearly uncomfortable. Of course, Noah couldn't access her savings, which were now under management.
Damn it. Even Mom's no help anymore.
Late at night, in a fit of desperation, Noah attempted to break into our house.
Hey, it's me. I know you're in there. Let me in.
At this unreasonable hour, James angrily confronted him.
Do you even know what time it is? There's no way I'm letting you in. Go home.
Their argument went on for a while, but eventually, the police surrounded our house.
What? The police?
Give it up. You're completely surrounded.
The police addressed Noah through a loudspeaker. Noah's loud and aggressive shouting was so disruptive that nearby residents, mistaking him for a notorious nighttime burglar, reported him to the police. Noah insisted to the police.
I belong to this household.
Is he really family?
No, he's not. Noah wasn't arrested but was released with a stern warning. Unable to bear the cold stares of those around him, he quietly left. Later, I heard from relatives that Mom, now in the facility, had started muttering to herself frequently due to her dementia.
I'm sorry, Ashley. I'm so sorry.
Apparently, she kept apologizing repeatedly. According to relatives, Mom had once been scolded by my grandmother, Ashley, for neglecting housework to go on trips with her friends. Mom had also been a spendthrift, and my grandmother had often lamented how hard it was to save money. Like mother, like son, I suppose. I couldn't help but feel oddly convinced.
I'm glad you didn't turn out like those two, Catherine.
Me too. I'm grateful I take after Grandma. With that, James and I exchanged a glance and laughed.
She's a parasite living off my brother who makes $7,000 a month.
She's like an unemployed freeloader.
The ones throwing these insults with smirks on their faces are my husband, Ken, and his younger sister, Monica. They've decided I'm beneath them and frequently make comments like this. But I never imagined they would stoop so low as to mock and belittle me in front of 30 relatives gathered for Christmas. I've never complained to Ken, thinking I should be grateful to be married to him. I've also held back with Monica because she's his sister. Even though Monica constantly tried to put me down, I always stayed quiet and ignored her. But I can't hold it in any longer. Even if it means divorcing Ken, I don't want to stay with people who don't value me. And when I made my decision, both Ken and Monica ended up regretting their actions. My name is Julia Lewis. I'm a 39-year-old homemaker. 4 years ago, I was desperate to get married. When I was 35, I was dumped by my boyfriend, Nate, who I had been dating since I was 30.
Being with you feels suffocating.
Nate said that, but later I found out he had been cheating on me, and the frustration kept me awake for several nights. But I couldn't afford to dwell on it for too long. After being dumped by Nate, I was down for a few days, but I quickly rushed to a matchmaking service. However, at my age, finding a match became significantly more challenging. Even after 2 years of being a member, I had 0 results. While a few men agreed to meet me, none of those meetings led to serious relationships. And before I knew it, I turned 37. My parents had passed away early, and I didn't have much connection with extended family. So, if I didn't get married, I would be alone for the rest of my life. I don't want to live by myself forever. Driven by that sense of urgency, I applied for as many matchups as possible, and eventually, I met one man. That man was my husband, Ken.
To tell you the truth, I'm preparing to start my own company. It's going to get busy, so I joined this service hoping to find someone who could support me. But whenever women hear that my work might become unstable, they all avoid me.
Ken explained with a wry smile when we first met. It made sense. Most women wouldn't want a partner whose career was uncertain. Especially when they're considering marriage, it's understandable to prioritize stability. But I wasn't concerned about that at all. I think it's amazing when someone works hard to pursue their dreams.
Really? That's the first time someone has ever said that to me since I joined the service. Could we meet again?
Of course, I replied with a smile. I did think Ken's lack of popularity among women might work to my advantage. But when I said I admired him, I truly meant it. Ken's eyes sparkled as he talked about his dream of owning his own company, and I couldn't help but want to cheer him on. On top of that, Ken was incredibly kind and made sure to escort me with care the entire time. If only I could marry someone like him. After the matchmaking meeting ended, I genuinely felt that way. From then on, our relationship progressed smoothly and effortlessly. We seemed to be a good match for each other. And just before I turned 38, we got married.
Now that we're married and life is more stable, I'm ready to focus on preparing my business. It's going to get hectic, so I'd like you to be a homemaker and support me.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Since I didn't have much attachment to my job and wanted to support Ken during his busy times, I quickly transitioned from an office worker to a full-time homemaker. Since I had some savings, I didn't feel too anxious about leaving my job. 6 months after we got married, Ken successfully launched his company, and it got off to a very smooth start.
It's all thanks to your hard work and support, Julia.
Ken seemed busy every day, but his company's performance was steadily improving, and he couldn't stop smiling. However, his income fluctuated drastically. Some months, he earned $7,000, but during dry spells, it dropped below $1,000. Still, even when there was no work, he kept himself occupied as the company's president, and I did my best to support him. But as we approached our first wedding anniversary, Ken's behavior began to change for the worse. I made your favorite meatloaf tonight. I offer a homemade dinner to Ken, who comes home looking exhausted. Without a word, Ken sat down at the table, not even bothering to say grace, and started eating. Watching him from the kitchen, I let out a quiet sigh. When we first got married, he always said grace and enjoyed my cooking with enthusiasm. But lately,
Hey, did you even taste this? It's bland.
Ken snapped irritably, criticizing my cooking. And it wasn't just tonight. He'd been constantly tearing down my meals recently. His complaints weren't limited to the food.
Look, there's dust here. Are you even cleaning? You're a homemaker, aren't you? Don't you understand that housework is your job? I can't stand people who slack off in their work.
Sorry. I'll clean it right away. When I apologize, Ken responds with a sharp clicking his tongue. It seemed like he couldn't open his mouth without insulting me for something. Where did the kind Ken go? Once I saw him head to the bathroom, I let out a big sigh. Right after we got married, he was so gentle. But over time, he started treating me poorly, and now his words were nothing but criticism. Even so, I couldn't imagine divorcing Ken. At my age, it would be tough to remarry. I had joined a matchmaking service because I was so determined to get married. I couldn't bear to give up on that dream so quickly after finally achieving it. Besides, I figured I wasn't the only one whose partner became less considerate after marriage. Ken constantly complained about me, but he wasn't like the awful husbands you see in TV dramas or movies. Maybe things will change if we have kids. That's what I was optimistically thinking, but when we entered our second year of marriage, I brought up the idea of having children. However, the response I got from Ken was completely unexpected.
I don't want kids.
What? But before we got married, you said you wanted kids soon. That had been one of the reasons I decided to marry him. Given my age, I wanted to have children as soon as possible. Ken had also said he wanted to have kids right away. But now, he dismissed it as a thing of the past.
My friend's wife had a baby and got fat. I can't stand the idea of my wife becoming unattractively overweight. Plus, I've heard that when kids come along, women get so caught up in them that they start neglecting housework. That's just unacceptable. So no, I don't want kids.
His selfish reasoning left me too shocked to respond. And then, something happened that pushed me even further to the edge. It was the presence of my sister-in-law, Monica.
Hey, I'm here.
Monica, I've told you so many times to let me know before you come over.
It's no big deal. We're family, right?
I think it's rude to show up unannounced just because we're family. But I swallowed my words. The last time I said something to Monica, she exaggerated my complaint and reported it to Ken.
How could you say something so awful to my sister Monica?
Ken was quite the sister complex, and I remember struggling a lot to calm him down at that time. Monica knew full well that her brother Ken was completely on her side, so she would casually inconvenience me. Showing up unannounced like today is just the tip of the iceberg. There were even times when she made me cook meals for her entire family because she didn't feel like cooking herself. And lately, things have gotten even more troublesome.
Take care of the baby again today, okay? I'm heading out with friends.
With those words, Monica handed me her baby, who had just started to hold their head up. Before I could refuse, Monica quickly left my house. Monica had gotten married before me and already had a child. I thought she would visit less after her child was born, but instead, she left the child entirely in my care.
This is practice for when you have kids in the future, Julia.
She says that, but it's really just an excuse to dump her parenting duties so she can go have fun. Thanks to her, my house is now fully stocked with baby supplies, even though I don't have children myself. Oh, there. Don't cry. Your mom sure is something else, huh? As I comforted the baby on the verge of tears, they quickly stopped crying and smiled at me. When Monica comes to pick her up, the baby cries nonstop, to the point where I wonder if she's more attached to me. Well, there go all my plans for today. I had planned to go to the salon, but there's no way I can bring a baby there. After canceling my appointment, I spent the entire day taking care of the baby. Fast forward to the second Christmas of my marriage. Ken practically dragged me to visit his father's family home. Ken's father is from the countryside, and the family home is a large, traditional house. Every year, relatives gather there to celebrate Christmas. I didn't attend last year because I had the flu. And honestly, I wasn't eager to go somewhere filled with strangers. This year, I wasn't planning to go either. But Ken went ahead and told his family I'd be coming, leaving me no choice but to go. The house was chaotic, with 30 relatives gathered, and after a quick introduction, I was roped into helping with the party alongside relatives Harriet and Misty.
What's your name again? Oh, whatever. Just carry this over there.
When you're done with that, do this.
Yes, got it. I was rushing around, trying to keep up with hosting strangers I'd never met. So busy it was making my head spin. By the way, Ken's parents weren't there because they both caught the flu. Although I'm not particularly close to them, I regretted not using that as an excuse to stay back and take care of them.
Hey, so you're Ken's wife, huh? Wow, you're getting up there in age.
Ken, your taste sure is something.
Drunk and red-faced, Ken's uncles, Mike and Tom, cracked rude jokes and burst out laughing. Ken just grinned along with them, not bothering to stand up for me. In fact, he went further.
They've got a point. Maybe I messed up picking my wife.
Ken's mocking comments only added fuel to the fire. making the party even roadier. I watched it all with a cold glare. I should get back to carrying food now. Leaving them with that, I quickly stepped out into the hallway and let out a heavy sigh. Why do I have to start Christmas with such unpleasant experiences? Maybe I should have faked being sick. Just as I muttered that, I heard lively voices beyond the door.
Monica's baby is so cute. Good thing they don't take after her husband.
Totally. Monica was also there that day, but thanks to the parenting past she had as an excuse, she wasn't running around like the other women. She was sitting with the men, enjoying food and drinks as she pleased. Like Ken, she used her spouse as a punching bag for jokes to entertain the crowd. If the baby had been born looking like my husband, I'd have started saving up for plastic surgery right away. But luckily, I won't need to do that.
Hey now, Monica, your husband's soaking over here. Your sharp tongue hasn't changed, but maybe give the guy a break once in a while?
The men laughed loudly as they pretended to sympathize. Though I could escape the situation, Monica's husband couldn't. I felt sorry for him. Just as I thought that, the insults turned toward me. Speaking of pitiful, how about my brother? Everyone knows he started his own company, right? He's actually doing pretty well. He's had months where he made $7,000.
Wow, that's impressive.
But his wife is, no kids, no help around the house, just completely useless, don't you think? Monica's question prompted the relatives to chime in with agreement.
Ken, it's not too late. Divorce that old lady and marry a younger woman.
Want me to introduce someone to you?
Instead of defending me, Ken responded to the men's comments like this.
Well, she's pretty quiet. She just says, yes, yes, to whatever I tell her. She's perfect as a servant. Where else would I find someone so convenient?
Hearing Ken's words, I felt the blood drain from my face. I've been working hard every day to support Ken, who is always busy. I do it because I love him. But to Ken, I'm just a convenient servant. There's no love there. As I reeled from this realization, I heard even more shocking words. She's a parasite living off my brother who makes $7,000 a month.
She's like an unemployed freeloader.
Their words drew loud laughter from the group of men. The sound of their ugly laughter made me instinctively cover my ears. To them, I was less than human. The moment I understood my position, I stopped caring about everything. I rushed into marrying Ken because I was afraid of missing my chance. And I endured the mistreatment from Ken and Monica because I thought I wouldn't be able to remarry if we divorced. But is it worth enduring such treatment just to maintain the title of being married? Do I really want to protect this life at the cost of my own happiness? The answer is no. Then I'll stop being your wife.
What?
What? I threw the door open and declared loudly. Ken, Monica, and the men in the room stared at me in shock, stunned by my unexpected entrance and announcement.
What are you talking about?
Ken asked in a baffled tone, unable to grasp the situation. I looked at him with a face full of exasperation and replied. I said, I'm done being your wife. My declaration was met with confused murmurs from the men in the room.
Well, Julia, was it? Does that mean you're divorcing Ken?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. As the word divorce came out, Ken finally understood what I was saying. His expression shifted from shock to anger in an instant.
Are you serious? If you divorce me, you'll never remarry. You wanted to get married so badly, and now you're throwing it away in just 2 years.
If I can't be happy with someone who doesn't protect me, then being alone is still better. Up until now, I was fixated on being married. But when I thought about it calmly, I couldn't understand why I had been so obsessed. I wanted to get married, not just to avoid being alone, but to share happiness with my partner. I didn't marry Ken to make myself miserable. As I stood firm in my decision, Monica let out a mocking laugh.
Wow, that's a bold statement, Julia. But do you realize who you're divorcing? My brother is a golden catch, making $7,000 a month. You're an idiot for wanting to leave him over something like this.
Monica's twisted grin only made me more resolute. $7,000? That's a thing of the past. Ken doesn't make that kind of money anymore. His business is in pretty bad shape. A wave of shock rippled through the room. Ken's business had started strong, but sales plummeted within 6 months, and now it's barely hanging on. Without any solutions, it's only a matter of time before the company goes bankrupt.
How? How do you know about that?
Because you're so disorganized. You left a pile of overdue notices from your company lying around in the living room. Ken was at a loss for words as I exposed his carelessness. Monica, who had been smug until now, began to pale.
But if you divorce him, you'll be single. A housewife turning single. That's the end of the line for you.
It seemed Monica was determined to see me unhappy. She spat out her words like a sore loser. In response, I revealed a shocking truth that no one knew. I've been making a lot of money through real estate investments. I actually earn more than Ken, so you don't need to worry about me. Monica's shocked voice came out weak and deflated. The relatives, too, were wide-eyed with surprise, but no one was more stunned than Ken. As he stood there with his mouth agape, I couldn't help but remark, "Why are you so surprised? I told you before I quit my job, didn't I? I said I'd keep working on my real estate investments even as a housewife. Sometimes I work on it during my spare time."
Wait, what? I never heard that.
Oh, that's right. I told you while you were playing video games. You must not have been listening because you were too absorbed in your game. You really should fix that bad habit of yours. I pointed out Ken's flaw with a sigh, trying not to roll my eyes too hard. One of Ken's hobbies is gaming, and when he gets into it, he becomes so focused that he even forgets to eat. It's true that I mentioned my real estate investments while he was gaming, but I never imagined he hadn't heard me at all.
That's impossible. There's no way you make more money than me with real estate. You're just a housewife. I'm the one who's been supporting you.
The relatives, who had been on Ken's side until now, started giving him cold looks after hearing how clueless he was about such an important topic. Desperate to escape their judgmental gazes, Ken scrambled to deny the truth I had revealed. Then, do you want to take a look at my bank book? That should make it clear that I earn more than you. Honestly, didn't you ever wonder how we were able to maintain the same lifestyle even though you've barely been giving me any money lately? As Ken's business began to struggle, he gradually reduced the amount of money he gave me for living expenses each month. When I told him it wasn't enough, Ken sighed and said,
Not enough. I'm giving you plenty. If anything, I was giving you too much before. If you think it's not enough, why don't you cut back? I saw someone on social media managing groceries on just $120 a month. If they can do it, so can you.
Ken's comment was absurd. Spending only $120 a month on groceries is impossible. Anyone who manages a household would know that instantly. That social media post must have been a lie. Even if it were possible for someone living alone and eating 2 meals a day, we're a household of 2, and Ken eats more than the average person. But Ken remained firm, acting like it was a reasonable expectation. I have no choice. I'll have to dip into my savings. When it became clear that asking Ken was pointless, I started using my own savings to cover the shortfall. Still, I earn more than Ken. Even if Ken stopped contributing entirely, I could easily support the two of us. Well, I doubt it'll ever get to the point where he gives me nothing. I thought that optimistically, but 2 months later, Ken didn't give me a single cent. When I confronted him about it, he said,
It can't be helped. The business is struggling. Haven't I been giving you plenty of money until now? You weren't wasting it, were you? You must have saved some of it. Just use that.
The money Ken gave me was so little it barely covered anything, so of course I hadn't saved a penny. I was more baffled than angry, wondering how he could be so oblivious about household finances. Ken's selfish behavior left me speechless. I resigned myself to covering all the expenses. You said you've been supporting me, but the truth is the opposite. I've been supporting you, and yet you act so high and mighty without even realizing that. My words made Ken's face flush with a mix of anger and embarrassment. I don't fully understand, but being called an incompetent man who can't earn money seems to be deeply humiliating for men. Ken was no exception, and he was visibly angry at my comment.
How dare you say that to my brother?
Monica, stepping in for the speechless Ken, tried to attack me.
If you keep insulting my brother, then it's over between you two. If you get divorced at your age, you'll never remarry. Your future will be hopeless, and you'll spend your life alone and miserable.
Whether or not we get divorced isn't up to you, Monica. Why do you think you have the authority to decide that? I shot back immediately, and Monica bit her lip in frustration, clearly upset. If she's going to get this flustered, she shouldn't have attacked me in the first place, I thought. Also, why would getting divorced mean my future is hopeless? Being single isn't unusual these days.
Not being able to get married means no one wants you. That's obviously sad and miserable.
Don't decide what makes me happy. It's annoying. Sure, I used to be fixated on marriage, but I'm not unwanted. I have plenty of friends. Marriage isn't the only way for a woman to be happy. Many people find their greatest joy in spending time with friends, and some value their alone time above all else. Happiness is different for everyone, and there's no single definition of it. That's why I won't be unhappy if I divorce Ken. For you, Monica, marriage might be the ultimate happiness, but not for me. I don't want to stay with someone who can hurt others and not feel a thing. That's why I'm done being Ken's wife. Then I turned to glare at the male relatives, who had been quietly watching the scene unfold. Did you know? There's been an increase in older couples getting divorced. If you keep treating your wives like servants while you enjoy yourselves, you'll end up being abandoned too. At my remark, the wives, who had apparently joined unnoticed, began voicing their agreement.
She's right. I'm not divorcing now because my husband works, but the thought of him being home all day after retirement is terrifying.
Does he think he'll start doing housework after retirement when he never helped with the kids or housework before?
Taking care of the kids is done, and now I'm supposed to take care of my husband? No way. I'd rather get divorced, too.
Amid the women's growing complaints, the men looked increasingly flustered. Some even rushed to apologize to their wives. Men really are hopeless if they can't realize these things without being told. Deciding there was no reason to stay any longer, I quickly left the house. I headed to the parking lot, ready to go home alone without Ken. Ken and Monica flustered, came running to try and stop me.
Hey, what do you think you're doing, leaving without permission? And that's my car.
This car? I paid for it in full and it's under my name. When did it become yours? The car, which Ken used daily for commuting, was actually something it bought before we got married. I let him use it simply because I didn't have much attachment to it. Ken looked shocked at my words, clearly having forgotten the truth.
Wait, what? Didn't you give it to me?
Of course not. Stop saying stupid things. You're giving me a headache. As I held my head in frustration, Monica shrieked at me.
If you're divorcing, then you should leave. Pack your things and get out of that house.
The apartment we're living in? It's under my name. I'm the one paying the rent. Your idiot brother just moved into my apartment. You're the ones who need to leave. Yes, not just the car. The house is under my name too. If we're getting divorced, it's Ken who has to leave. As I explained earlier, I've been covering all the living expenses. In other words, the one losing everything in this divorce isn't me. It's Ken. Realizing this fact, Monica lost all her confidence, her face growing paler by the moment. Ken also seemed to grasp what would happen if I left him and, in a complete turnaround, clung to me desperately.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. I had no idea we were able to live because of you.
Come on. Even if you didn't know, a little thought would have made it obvious. But since you always thought of me as beneath you, it probably never occurred to you that I was the one supporting you.
Beneath me? No, I never thought that.
Even as he denied it, Ken avoided my eyes. This is a habit he unconsciously shows whenever he lies to me. Since we got married, Ken had always thought of me as beneath him. No, he might have been looking down on me even before we got married. He probably chose me because he thought someone he considered lower would be easier to control. From the start, it was clear I wouldn't find happiness being married to Ken. It just took me far too long to realize it. I'm divorcing you, Ken.
No, I don't want a divorce.
Then I'll take it to court. I refuse to stay married to you. I can't stand carrying the name Lewis anymore. I hate you, Ken, and I can't even tolerate you anymore. So, we're getting divorced. Ken's face fell in shock at my outright rejection. He must not have imagined I despised him this much. But after being humiliated in front of 30 relatives, how could I not? Well, that's that. I'll head home first and pack up your belongings. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas holiday. Ken looked devastated, and Monica stood frozen in shock. In contrast, I wore a bright, satisfied smile. Relishing the joy of escaping from this miserable life, I wasted no time driving away. As I watched Ken and Monica grow smaller in the rearview mirror, I savored my newfound freedom. When I got home, I immediately began packing Ken's belongings. It took the whole day, but by the next day, I was ready to move his stuff out. Just as I was planning to deliver it to his parents' home, Ken returned in a relative's car. I'm taking this to your parents' house. Help me load it up. Ken seemed too defeated to resist and silently complied. When I explained the situation to his parents, they were initially surprised but eventually agreed that the divorce was inevitable. Ken may have been unreasonable, but his parents seemed more reasonable. And so, our divorce was finalized quickly. Having his pride shattered in front of his family and facing my complete rejection must have hit Ken hard. When I brought the divorce papers to his parents' house, Ken signed them without protest. Since Ken had no savings or assets, there was no division of property. All the furniture and appliances in the house were things I had purchased. So the paperwork ended with just submitting the divorce papers. Unsurprisingly, Ken had no financial means to live on his own and stayed at his parents' house. As I was about to leave their house with the signed papers, I heard Ken mutter,
"I'm sorry."
It was so faint I could barely hear it. I felt nothing but exasperation. If he truly felt sorry, he would have apologized properly. There was no way I could accept such an insincere apology, nor would it change my resolve to never forgive him. So I pretended not to hear and left his parents' house. As for what happened to Ken afterward, his life became miserable. His company soon went bankrupt, leaving him with significant debt. Since he's living with his parents, he doesn't have to worry about living expenses, but he still has to work to repay his debts. Currently, Ken is juggling multiple jobs, struggling to repay his debts. Monica also met a grim fate. Her husband served her divorce papers shortly after. Come to think of it, her husband was also humiliated in front of their relatives. Like me, he must have reached his breaking point. To make matters worse, he discovered Monica had been unfaithful and demanded alimony and custody of their child. Monica tried to resist, but her husband hired a skilled lawyer, and he ultimately got everything he asked for. Monica moved back to her parents' house and is now working desperately to pay off her alimony. The two who looked down on me and mocked me faced the consequences they deserved. There's no room for sympathy. Their outcomes were fitting. As for the wives who criticized their husbands during that family gathering, some worked things out with their spouses, while others ended up divorcing. Like me, they chose the path that felt right for them. Though I don't know them well, I hope they find happiness in whichever path they chose. After the divorce, I terminated the lease on the apartment and moved to a new location. This was to prevent Ken or his family, desperate for money, from showing up at my door. Now, I live peacefully alone in a rented one-story house. Thanks to my real estate investments, I'm financially comfortable and plan to enjoy a leisurely life for a while. Now, what should I do today? There's no one to answer my musings, but that's fine. I'm very content with this life. I used to be so anxious about finding someone to marry, but now I realize I'm much happier on my own. Oh, that's right. There's an art exhibit for my favorite painter going on. I'll go see that today. Humming to myself, I prepare to head out. I'm living alone now, but I couldn't be happier. My husband got injured during his affair trip and was taken to the hospital. The only thing that comes out of his mouth is verbal abuse.
Look at this huge injury. This itching from the bandages is unbearable. Hurry up and wipe my body. Taking care of your husband is a wife's duty.
You say it's a wife's duty to care for her husband? After you cheated on me with my sister? There's no way I can take care of a husband who doesn't even worry about me when I'm sick. I have no obligation to you anymore.
What did you say?
Reaching the peak of his irritation at my words, my husband lashed out, trying to grab me, but he ended up falling out of the bed. The impact seemed to send a sharp pain through his right leg, and he screamed so loudly that it echoed throughout the hospital.
Grace, no, it's not me. The real person isn't me.
Saying that, Emily pulled back the curtain to the bed next to his. The moment I saw who was behind the curtain, it felt like it'd been struck by a blunt object. What? Why? Lying on the bed was none other than that person. I'm Grace, a 28-year-old working professional. After graduating college, I joined a cosmetics company. Working life was far tougher than I imagined, both physically and mentally, but I felt joy in being able to work at the company it admired since my school days. As I adjusted to the busy yet fulfilling days, I was introduced to my future husband, Ryan, through my friend. Ryan, who worked for a major company, was an elite graduate of a top-tier university. Sharp, knowledgeable, and trusted by both his juniors and superiors, he was incredibly charismatic. Despite all this, he was down to earth, approachable, and easy to talk to. When I opened up about my work struggles, he listened seriously and gave me precise advice. So, when this incredibly charming Ryan proposed to me, asking to date with marriage in mind, I was so shocked I blurted out. 3 years into our marriage, I'm still steadily continuing my job. While we don't have kids yet, Ryan and I enjoy a happy married life together. My family home, by the way, is about an hour's drive from where we live in downtown New York. My parents always got along well and enjoyed traveling together, a true lovebird couple even in their daughter's eyes. Sadly, my kind dad passed away a few years ago due to illness. At the time, of course, I was heartbroken over my dad's passing, but I was even more worried about my mom being left alone, so I visited home frequently. Coincidentally, not long after my dad's death, my older sister Emily divorced and returned home. Knowing Emily was there gave me peace of mind. So now my husband and I only visit once or twice a year to check in. From the outside, my relationship with Ryan and my family seems perfect, and we appear to be a problem-free couple. But there's one thing that's been bothering me lately. Recently, Ryan has been coming home past midnight more and more often. When I ask him about it, he brushes me off.
We're in the middle of the busy season right now. You work too, Grace, so you should understand what that's like.
Of course, I understand how tough the busy season can be. Stacks of unfinished paperwork, endless phone calls, looming deadlines. Just imagining it gives me a headache. But no matter how busy you've been since we got married, you've never come home this late before. That's why I'm worried.
Geez, even your mom said this, Grace. You worry too much.
He didn't even try to hide his irritated expression, so I decided not to push any further. Alright, sorry for bothering you when you're tired. The bath's ready, so go ahead and relax. Okay, he replied flatly and headed to the bathroom. When did Ryan become so cold? He never acted like that before, even when work kept him busy. Do people really change as their marriage goes on? Even though I still felt uneasy, I tried to push the feelings deep down and headed to the bedroom to get some sleep. As I was walking, I noticed something colorful sticking out of Ryan's bag on the sofa. Even though we're married, I felt hesitant about going through his belongings without permission. But my curiosity got the better of me. The moment I picked it up, the feelings I had just suppressed started to creep back. This is Emily's handkerchief, and it's the one I gave her as a gift. I recognized it immediately. For Emily's birthday last year, I had ordered a custom handkerchief from her favorite brand. I even had her name embroidered on it, and she loved it. Baseless, unpleasant thoughts began swirling in my head, but thinking about it wouldn't solve anything. I had work early the next morning, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep until I cleared up this uneasy feeling. Eventually, Ryan came out of the bathroom and entered the bedroom. Hey Ryan, I'm sorry to bother you before bed, but I just have one question. Ryan looked annoyed but let me continue when I insisted it would be quick. It's about this. The moment I showed Ryan Emily's handkerchief, I saw the color drain from his flushed face, still red from the bath. I found this in your work bag. This is Emily's handkerchief, right? Why do you have it? I got curious because I gave it to her as a gift last year.
This is Emily's. I didn't even notice. I must be borrowed it the last time we went to visit your mom together and forgot to return it.
I see. Then we should make sure to give it back next time we see her. It's one of her favorite things.
Yeah, well, do that. Is that all you wanted to ask? I'm going to sleep now.
Ryan pulled the covers over himself, making it clear he had nothing more to say. But the uneasiness inside me only grew stronger, and in the end, I couldn't fall asleep until dawn. Since that incident, I'd been having trouble sleeping, and eventually, my health started to decline. When I woke up one morning, I could tell without even using a thermometer that I had a fever. My body felt as heavy as lead, and sharp, constant pain radiated from the top of my head. It seemed like I'd caught a cold from pushing my sleep-deprived body to keep up with work and house chores. When I called in sick to my office, they urged me to make sure to visit a doctor. But I didn't have the energy or strength to drive, let alone walk to the clinic. Ryan had already left for the day, so asking him to take me wasn't an option. Left with no choice, I decided to rest in bed for the day. The Ryan I used to know would be taken care of me if this had happened in the past. Thinking about all this made me sad, so I gently closed my eyes to push the feelings out of my head. When I opened my eyes, the evening sun was streaming through the window, illuminating the houseplant by the windowsill. It seemed I had slept for quite a while. Thanks to finally getting some rest after so long, my terrible headache had eased, and I felt refreshed. However, my fever hadn't gone down enough to walk outside, so I decided to ask Ryan to pick up some medicine and groceries for dinner. I felt a bit bad for bothering him since he seemed so busy, but I thought it would be okay to rely on him just this once while I wasn't feeling well, so I called him right away. "Hello, Ryan? It's me."
Oh, Grace, I am still at work. What do you need?
"Oh, Grace. I wanted to say, that's no way to talk to your wife. But I didn't have the energy to argue, so I bit my tongue. Sorry to bother you while you're busy. I've had a fever since this morning and took the day off work. It hasn't gone down yet, so I can't go shopping. Could you pick some things up on your way home?"
A fever? Oh. Managing your health is part of being an adult, isn't it? Don't you think you're being a bit irresponsible? Anyway, I'm too busy today and can't come home, so go shopping yourself. If you keep relying on people like this, you'll get spoiled. All right, I've got to go. My boss is calling me.
With that, Ryan hung up the phone abruptly, as if to say he didn't have a single second to spare for me. I stared blankly at the phone, listening to the disconnected tone, unable to move for a while. Why would he talk to me like that when I'm sick? No matter how busy he is at work, does he really not want to talk to me that much? When we first got married, he would always worry about me more than anyone else and take care of me when I wasn't feeling well. He would buy pudding and sports drinks from the pharmacy, call my mom to ask what meals she used to make for me when I was sick, and then cook them for me. Why has he gotten so cold? Ryan. Feeling like my fever was rising again, I drank some cold water from the fridge and crawled back under the covers, trying not to think about anything. Ryan didn't come home until late the next night. By then, I had completely recovered and was able to go to work that morning without any issues. Since I was still recovering, I wanted to go to bed early, but I had something I needed to talk to Ryan about, so I waited up for him. The show I wanted to watch had already ended, so I sat watching a boring infomercial when I heard the sound of the door opening. I quickly headed to the front door. "Welcome back. Tough day at work?"
Yeah.
Dinner is ready. Or take a shower first.
Neither. I'm exhausted. Unlike you, I can't afford to take a day off.
I thought, couldn't you at least worry about your wife's health a little? But after his attitude on the phone yesterday, I wasn't surprised, so it didn't bother me anymore. Sorry to bring this up as soon as you're home, but there's something I need to tell you.
What is it? Make it quick. I want to sleep.
Sure. So, when I went to work today, my boss asked if I could go on a business trip next week. I was hesitant because of everything at home, but it's only for 2 or 3 days, so I agreed. I'll need you to take care of things at home while I'm gone. Since getting married, I had been doing all the housework by myself. I doubted Ryan could even do laundry properly, so I braced myself for whatever sarcastic remark he might throw my way. But his response was unexpected.
A business trip? When exactly?
It starts next Tuesday. I'm not sure about the return date yet. I'll have a meeting with my boss tomorrow to confirm. I'll let you know once it's set.
Tuesday, huh? Got it. Make sure to email me as soon as you know your return date.
With that reminder, he looked slightly pleased as he headed toward the bathroom. Wait, Ryan, weren't you going to bed?
I've changed my mind. Since you went to the trouble of preparing everything, I'll freshen up before going to bed.
Where did his earlier bad mood disappear to? Hearing about the business trip seemed to have put him in an oddly good mood. It wasn't just my imagination. And when was the last time I heard him say, "Since you prepared it, Grace"? In the past, I might have been happy to hear those words, but now it only made me suspicious. Could it be? The thought crossed my mind, but there was no evidence, and the trip hadn't even started yet. However, that one fleeting, delighted expression from Ryan was enough to deepen my distrust. In the days leading up to the trip, Ryan kept asking me about the exact return date, reassuring me repeatedly with phrases like, "Don't worry about the house," or "Focus solely on work during your trip," things he normally never said. On the day of the trip, despite his busy schedule, Ryan even took the time to see me off at the station.
Have a good trip. See you Thursday.
He said with a smile, waving as I boarded. As the train left and I settled into my seat, I started replaying Ryan's behavior in my mind. His excitement at hearing about the trip, the frequent late nights, and then Emily's handkerchief in his bag. Emily's handkerchief? No way. Trying to shake off the unpleasant thoughts suddenly filling my head, I stood and made my way to the deck area. I searched my phone contacts for my mom's number and pressed the screen. A voice inside me kept repeating, "Just in case."
Hello? Who's this?
Hi, it's Grace. Mom?
Oh, Grace, it's rare for you to call. What's going on? Aren't you usually working at this hour?
Actually, I'm on a business trip and just got on the train. I had some free time, so I thought I'd call. I realize I haven't been in touch since my last visit home. You're not sick or anything, right?
I'm fine. A business trip? I'm so jealous. It sounds like a vacation. It must be fun.
It's work, Mom, not sightseeing. You really haven't changed with your love for travel. By the way, how's Emily? Anything unusual?
Emily? She's her usual self. Doing great. Going to work as usual. Oh, but she has today off apparently. It's been noisy since morning, and I woke up earlier than usual because of it.
A day off. Does she have plans to go out with someone? The word "off" made my chest tighten.
Yeah, she's been getting ready to go somewhere all morning. Looks like she's heading out soon. And oh, she's dressed up more than usual. Maybe she found a new boyfriend?
The phrase, just in case, vanished from my mind, replaced by the sound of my heart pounding louder. Even as I struggled to respond, Mom kept talking, saying things like, "I'm so happy she's finally found someone new." I slowly moved the phone away from my ear, feeling Mom's voice fade as the call ended without me realizing it. Leaning against the door, I stared at the screen of my phone, now displaying the disconnected call. After a while, I reopened the call screen and pressed the call button again. That night, after finishing work and returning to my hotel, exhaustion hit me like a concrete block, crushing my entire body. I had focused all my energy on meetings with clients to avoid thinking about Ryan and Emily during the day. There was still no evidence, so there was no point dwelling on it. But my mind worked overtime, desperately trying to piece together anything that could serve as proof. Ryan and Emily? Since when? Are they together even now while I'm sitting here? No. Maybe Emily just happened to dress up for some other reason. And Ryan really might just be busy with work. Then why was he so excited? Why doesn't he worry about me at all? And what about Emily's handkerchief? I thought about calling my mom again, but asking about Emily multiple times in one day would seem suspicious. Even if the two of them were meeting, there's no way Emily would tell Mom the truth. No, this is bad. I might be overthinking everything. I just need to focus on work for now. On Thursday night, after successfully completing my 3-day business trip, I was relaxing on the couch at home. For a change, Ryan had already returned home, and we were spending a rare, peaceful evening together. Was everything okay at home while I was gone?
Yeah, no problems. 3 days felt shorter than I thought.
Really? It felt super long to me. Also, I was relieved to see the house wasn't as messy as I expected. You must be eaten out though, right?
Well, yeah. Mostly fast food. Turns out I managed the housework better than I thought, even without you.
That's good to hear. Oh, by the way, I brought back a famous local snack as a souvenir. Want to have some together? Sure, he replied, so I quickly prepared tea and the snacks. It was rare for the two of us to sit and talk so calmly. I thought this might be a good opportunity to bring up Emily. By the way, what were you up to while I was on my trip?
What else? Work, obviously. Wait. You don't think I was cheating or something, do you?
I was startled to hear the word cheating come out of his mouth. No, that's not it. I was just curious about how you spent your time since I've never been away from home since we got married. Even when I visit my mom, you usually come with me. I casually mentioned my mom, but Ryan's expression didn't change. Speaking of my mom, when I was on the train, I called her for the first time in a while. She told me Emily might have a boyfriend now. I was so surprised. She hasn't shown any interest in men at all since her divorce.
A boyfriend for Emily, huh? Well, if she's taking a new step forward, that's great. Good for her.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Ryan showed no signs of being flustered and continued leisurely munching on the snacks. Seeing how calm he was, I decided not to press the issue any further. A few days later, Ryan told me he was going on a business trip to another state. Unlike mine, his trip was supposed to last much longer. He was excited, saying that if his presentation went well, it could lead to high praise from his superiors and a potential big promotion. Naturally, his excitement seemed to grow as his departure date approached, and he started coming home later than usual, likely due to preparations. I recognized this excitement. It was the same expression he had when I told him about my trip. On the night before his departure, Ryan mentioned that he'd forgotten to buy something and headed to the shop after coming home. Not wanting to miss the chance, I decided to check his suitcase, thinking there must be something. Conveniently, the suitcase was left wide open, making it easy for me to search through. I quickly reached inside to look for evidence, but the contents immediately struck me as strange. Is he really going on a business trip? Hidden inside the suitcase was a travel guidebook, something entirely unnecessary for work. It had multiple sticky notes sticking out, carefully placed for easy access. As I flipped through the pages, I found that the section listing the top-rated restaurants had been circled with a red pen, with a note reading "Reservation, 6:30 p.m." scribbled next to it. Instead of the usual white dress shirts needed for work, there were new, stylish shirts and shoes, complete with tags still attached, as well as a hat that seemed perfect for a resort area. It didn't make any sense for a client meeting to take place at a touristy restaurant, and there weren't any work-related clothes or materials in the suitcase. The work documents he had been so enthusiastic about creating weren't there, nor was the laptop he always used for work. It was as if he was preparing for his vacation with someone. I unconsciously bit my lip, tasting a faint hint of blood in my mouth. With trembling hands, I returned the guidebook to its original spot before Ryan came back, and I quietly left the bedroom. The next morning, Ryan left the house early. Perhaps to avoid suspicion, he was wearing his usual suit and dress shoes instead of the stylish clothes I'd seen in the suitcase the day before. As he walked out the door with his suitcase, confidently heading to his supposed business trip, I glared at his back through the slowly closing door. Clenching my fist tightly, I bottled up the dark feelings that had been festering in my heart. Once the door clicked shut, I immediately made a phone call. To my mom, of course. Since Ryan had left at this time, I figured Emily must have also left, and I wanted to confirm this with my mom. But no matter how long I waited, there was no answer. Maybe Mom's still asleep? Not wanting to disturb her if that was the case, I hung up for the time being. Although I was eager to uncover the truth about Ryan and Emily, I had work to do that day. So I decided to try calling again during my lunch break. With that, I shifted my focus back to getting ready for work. Little did I know, I was about to discover the truth about Ryan and Emily in an unexpected way. Later that morning, as I was preparing materials for an upcoming meeting, my personal phone rang. Hello?
Hello, this is Harper Hospital. Am I speaking to Grace Thomas, the wife of Ryan Thomas?
A hospital? Why was a hospital calling? And about Ryan, of all people? Yes, that's me. Has something happened to Ryan?
We'll explain the details when you arrive at the hospital, but he's been injured, and we need you to come as soon as possible.
According to the caller, Ryan had slipped while walking by the pool at the hotel, breaking a bone and being rushed to the local hospital. Apparently, his life wasn't in danger. I explained the situation to my boss and hurried to the hospital. On the way, I called Ryan's company. If this really was his business trip, they should have been informed about his hospitalization. Excuse me for interrupting. This is Grace Thomas, Ryan Thomas' wife. I need to confirm something regarding my husband's hospitalization during his business trip.
Well, I'm not sure I understand. Ryan was hospitalized during his business trip. There must be some kind of mistake.
What do you mean by mistake?
Ryan submitted a vacation request to us. We didn't assign him any business trip, and he mentioned he'd be traveling with his wife.
Ryan's boss sounded confused. and a mix of anger and disappointment swelled inside me. I see. Thank you for your time. I'll reach out again later. After ending the call, I exhaled deeply, trying to calm myself. As I suspected, Ryan had lied about a business trip and gone on a vacation instead. And not only that, but he had told his company he was traveling with me and even submitted a vacation request to cover it. My anger was boiling inside me, but the fact remained that Ryan had broken his leg and was hospitalized. Driven by the faint remnants of my conscience, I hurried to the hospital, worrying about Ryan as I went. The hospital where Ryan was admitted was about 2 hours from the city center. This area was a popular resort destination, and on the train ride there, I saw plenty of couples and families who seemed ready to create happy memories. But in my current state, I couldn't muster the energy to find their excitement heartwarming. After arriving at the hospital entrance, I quickly checked in and received a visitor's badge. I hung it around my neck and headed toward Ryan's hospital room, guided by the nurse. Placing my hand on the door, I took a deep breath to steady myself and slowly opened it. Ryan and Emily. As expected, my sister Emily was sitting beside Ryan's bed in a folding chair. Ryan, meanwhile, had his right leg wrapped in bandages and suspended in the air. Looking at his face, I noticed a bruise on his forehead that had turned from blue to black, peeking out from under a bandage. It looked painful. Despite his severe injuries, he seemed capable of talking. To end up like this. How pathetic, Ryan.
That's the first thing you say to your injured husband. No words of concern at all.
Let me ask you this. Why would you expect me to be concerned? Who was it that didn't even ask if I was okay when I had a fever?
I was busy with work. How could I have known you were sick?
Apparently, Ryan had no memory of me asking for help with groceries or of his snide remarks about me relying on him too much.
Now's not the time to bring that up, is it? Look at this huge injury. The bandages are making my whole body itch like crazy. Hurry up and wipe me down. Taking care of your husband is your duty as a wife, isn't it?
Ryan was clearly frustrated. And understandably so. Breaking a leg and becoming immobile during his vacation with Emily wasn't something he had planned for. Absolutely not. I'm exhausted from working every day too. Besides, there's no way I'm taking care of a husband who doesn't even worry about his wife when she's sick. I have no obligation to you anymore.
What did you say?
Ryan, now reaching his peak irritation, lashed out and tried to grab me. But with his lower body immobilized due to the fracture, he lost his balance and fell off the bed. The impact must have sent sharp pain through his right leg because his scream echoed throughout the hospital. Hearing the commotion, several nurses rushed into the room. What happened here? One of the nurses asked Emily and me. I simply looked down at Ryan with a cold glare. As the nurses worked to lift Ryan back onto the bed and tend to his injury again, I continued confronting him. You say it's a wife's duty to care for her husband? After you cheated on me with my sister, you have the nerve to say that? I shouted loud enough for everyone in the room to hear and pulled out several photos from my bag, thrusting them in front of Ryan and Emily. The nurses, visibly shocked, glanced between the photos, Ryan and Emily. Yes, it all started on the day I told Ryan about my business trip. His overly cheerful demeanor and Emily's suspicious behavior kept gnawing at me. After calling my mom, I hired a private investigator to monitor Ryan and Emily during the 3 days I was away. The results, as you can see, were damning. The photos clearly captured Ryan meeting Emily in front of a hotel and the two of them walking inside together, Being exposed in front of the nurses seemed to hit Emily hard, and she began to panic. Shaking her head vigorously, she stammered in a trembling voice, revealing a shocking truth.
No, it's not me. The real person isn't me.
With that, she walked over to the bed next to Ryan's and pulled open the curtain. As soon as I saw who was behind the curtain, it felt like it'd been struck by a blunt object. Why is Mom in this bed? Lying on the bed was unmistakably my mom, Clara. She was in even worse condition than Ryan, with both of her legs suspended from the ceiling. What's going on? Why is Mom here?
Grace, calm down and listen. I'll explain everything.
Seeing how confused I was, Emily seemed to regain her composure and slowly began to explain.
Ryan's affair partner isn't me. The real person he's been involved with is Mom.
Hearing Emily's words, I felt the blood drain from my entire body. The shock was so overwhelming that I couldn't form any words. Ryan. And my mom?
It wasn't me who went on a trip with Ryan. It was Mom. While they were walking by the pool, Ryan slipped and fell. Mom rushed to help him but ended up slipping badly herself. That's why they were both brought here.
My own mom. Dating with my husband. I never thought I'd hear something so horrifying in my life. I couldn't believe it.
We tried to make sure you wouldn't find out. But after Dad passed away, Mom fell into a deep depression. Even after I moved back home after my divorce, she would cry every day about how lonely she was. When you and Ryan came to visit, seeing how close you two were must be made her envious. Eventually, she couldn't resist anymore. Without me knowing, she exchanged contact information with Ryan behind your back.
I don't want to hear any more excuses. So, you knew everything from the beginning, didn't you, Emily? A mom having an affair with her daughter's husband. It's beyond normal. Why didn't you tell me?
Because once things got serious between Mom and Ryan, they begged me to help cover for them. They even asked me to make it look like I was the one having the affair in case you found out. I couldn't say no.
You couldn't say no? Did you even consider how I would feel?
I had just gotten divorced, and I sympathized with Mom more than I did with you. I felt sorry for her being alone, and after she started seeing Ryan, she stopped crying. It made things easier for me too.
How selfish could these people be? I couldn't believe that such selfish, inconsiderate people were my family. And Ryan, whose sense of morality was so twisted that he didn't even flinch at having an affair with his wife's mother. My relationship with Ryan had been destroyed, and my feelings trampled on, all to ease my mom's loneliness. Emily had even orchestrated an elaborate cover-up to fool the private investigator, just in case they were caught. They no longer felt like family to me.
Oh, and this.
Emily said, pulling a voice recorder out of her pocket.
I recorded this to prove I wasn't involved.
When she pressed play, a recording of Ryan and Mom talking at the hotel played, followed by the two of them gleefully bad-mouthing me and venting their frustrations. It was undoubtedly their voices. Emily must have prepared this recording in case she was ever accused of being involved, to clear her name. Suddenly, Ryan, who had been silent until now, started shouting.
That old hag forced herself on me. I told her no so many times, but every time I went to your house, she clung to me until I had no choice.
Mom, now enraged, fired back.
You're the one who said older woman was more attractive than your younger wife. Don't you dare lie. Stop acting so smug just because you're a little younger.
They began arguing, each blaming the other. But at this point, I didn't care who initiated it.
I'm leaving now. I've got work to do. This has nothing to do with me anymore. Good luck, Grace.
Emily said coldly, standing up and grabbing her bag. Wait, Emily. You're not innocent. You're just as guilty.
What?
I won't forgive Mom and Ryan for betraying me, and they'll pay for what they've done. But Emily, you knew about it and helped them cover it up. That makes you just as responsible. Get ready, because I'll be demanding compensation from you too. All three of you will regret betraying and deceiving me for the rest of your lives. A few days later, I had the private investigator dig deeper and discovered that on the same days Ryan used the hotel, Mom would visit him, timing her arrival to avoid being seen. At the same time, I proceeded with the divorce from Ryan. Using the voice recordings Emily had made as evidence, I successfully demanded a substantial amount in compensation from both Ryan and Mom. Later, I found out the reason for Emily's divorce. She had been unfaithful herself. In hindsight, it all made sense. She was capable of such behavior. Apparently, her ex-husband had demanded alimony, and she was struggling financially. Mom had offered to lend her money on the condition that Emily play the role of a decoy for their affair. Even now, years after their divorce, Emily still hasn't moved on. She's been trying to reconcile with her ex-husband, but he has firmly rejected her advances. Though he's technically my former brother-in-law, I can't help but feel sorry for him. I hope he finds someone better and has a much happier future. As for Ryan, his recovery from the injury was quicker than expected, and he was discharged shortly after the incident at the hospital. He had plenty of energy for yelling in the hospital room, so it's no surprise his physical condition improved quickly. Though he returned to work, his position at the company took a significant hit. Word about his affair with his mother-in-law spread throughout the office, leading to his demotion and transfer to a small branch in a remote area. Even there, the rumors followed him, and he now faces daily humiliation. Once admired and respected, Ryan is now a shadow of his former self, completely worn down. As much as people say rumors eventually fade, I hope this particular one about Ryan's scandal lingers forever. Mom is now wheelchair-bound, unable to use her legs, and lives under Ryan's care. Her days are filled with enduring both public shame and Ryan's frustration. Could there be a more fitting example of reaping what you sow? I've decided to sever ties with my family completely. From now on, I won't involve myself in their lives, nor will I check in on them. After my divorce, I focused on work and distanced myself from relationships and marriage for a while. Recently, however, I've grown close to the CEO of my business partner company, and we've decided to get married. This time, I believe I'll finally have a long-lasting, truly happy life.
All right, everyone's here. Let's go.
My mother-in-law said in an unusually cheerful tone. Oh, excuse me. I haven't had a chance to use the restroom yet. Her face immediately turned sour, and she looked at me as if I were a major inconvenience.
Seriously, what have you been doing? Everyone else already went. Hurry up, or we'll miss the flight.
She let out an exaggerated sigh. Sorry, I'll be quick, I said and ran toward the restroom.
Hurry up.
I could hear her voice calling out behind me. I quickly finished, washed my hands, and rushed back to the parking lot. Why is she in such a hurry when we still have plenty of time before the flight? As I puzzled over it, I was greeted with an unexpected sight. Wait, I'm pretty sure it was parked around here. The silver sedan my father-in-law had been driving was no longer in its spot. Was I mistaken? I looked around where I thought it might be, but no matter where I checked, the car was gone. After about 5 minutes of searching, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Maria. Yes, Maria? I could hear her laughing over the phone.
You took too long in the restroom, so we decided to leave without you.
Her voice sounded genuinely amused. I realized at that moment that this had been her plan all along. Wait, please hold on.
It's your fault for being so slow.
Hearing those words, I gave up. All right, enjoy yourselves on my behalf.
Of course, take care of things while we're gone.
With that, she hung up. I hope the three of them enjoy their overseas trip as much as possible. The three of them can enjoy their happiness for now while it lasts. I sat at the rest area, beer in hand, pondering what lay ahead for the three of them. My name is Rachel. I'm in my 20s and work at a company. My husband, John, is also in his 20s and works at a company. We met through our mutual friend during our school years. Apparently, he saw me around town and fell in love at first sight.
If you don't like it, you can turn it down.
Well, I guess I have no choice. At the time, I wasn't interested in dating, but my friend convinced me to meet him. Reluctantly, I ended up meeting John for dinner at a restaurant with our friend joining us. I wasn't sure what to expect. But when he arrived, he was well-dressed and looked like an average office worker. I was relieved that he seemed like a normal person.
I bet it was a shock when some random guy who just saw you on the street invited you to dinner. It must be felt like a new kind of pickup line.
He said, clearly embarrassed. I almost spit out my champagne but managed to hold it back. Seeing this, he quickly pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to me. His thoughtful gesture left a good impression. I took the handkerchief and thanked him. It was a neatly ironed handkerchief. It wasn't that bad, but I was definitely surprised.
Really?
Yeah, not many people notice me like that. As I said this, I felt my face flush. Our conversation flowed well, and I found myself wanting to know more about John. I decided to give the relationship a chance. John was very close to his parents, and he even had family photos displayed at his home. I thought of him as a kind and family-oriented person. Having lost my parents at an early age, I admired John's close bond with his family. We dated steadily and eventually decided to get married. When I told my friend about our engagement, she looked concerned.
Are you sure about this?
It must stem from the fact that I grew up not really understanding what a family is. That's what I laughingly told my concerned friend. You're worrying over nothing. After getting married, John and I moved into a new apartment. It was close to the station and right across from a park, making it an ideal place for raising kids in the future. When I expressed my desire to keep working, John was supportive.
Of course. Honestly, it helps me too.
I loved my job and wanted to save as much as possible for our future. The apartment, with its large windows and a fresh, new smell, had a great view. We should get a new sofa.
Yeah, let's go look for one this Sunday.
I felt happy being by John's side. I unpacked the new dishes we had bought for the move and neatly placed them in the kitchen drawers. The blue and green plates, still wrapped in paper, sparkled as if brand new. Humming to myself, I put them away carefully. Then the doorbell rang. Who could that be?
No idea. We're not expecting any more deliveries, right?
John, who was putting away clothes in the bedroom, came into the kitchen. Looking at the intercom screen, I saw a familiar face. Wait, isn't that your parents? I turned to John in surprise, but he avoided my gaze. What's going on? Left with no choice, I unlocked the lobby door and let them come up to the apartment.
Hello. Wow, it's quite far from our place.
There they stood, smiling, with large bags in hand. Well, what's with all the luggage?
Oh, don't worry. John already gave us the okay.
It seemed they planned to stay over, even though we had just moved in. But the amount of luggage seemed excessive for just a short visit.
What? He didn't tell you, honestly.
I didn't know. I was left speechless. Before I could process what was happening, my in-laws made themselves at home, bringing their belongings into the spare room. What's going on here? John still wouldn't answer and stayed in the bedroom. Meanwhile, I was roped into cleaning the kitchen and bathroom with Maria. What is happening? John stayed silent, and eventually, my in-laws ended up staying indefinitely. The next day, I went to work, returning home in the evening. I figured it couldn't be helped, but when I got home, Maria was in the kitchen with a stern look on her face. I'm back. I greeted her, but she immediately yelled,
Where have you been? Slacking off on housework and fooling around.
I was at work. I stammered, trying to respond. She snorted and pointed at the kitchen.
Enough excuses. Clean this up and get dinner ready.
She gave that order. The kitchen, which I had cleaned that morning, was now littered with dirty dishes my in-laws had used during the day. Maria, it would help if you could wash the dishes. Before I could finish, she shot me a sharp glare. John, who had come home earlier than me, was sitting nearby. I turned to him for help. John, can you give me a hand?
Oh, sure.
Rachel, don't bother John. He's tired. Wait until later.
Got it. Left with no choice, I cleaned the kitchen, started chopping vegetables, and began cooking dinner. Later, when I checked the laundry room, I found it piled high with my in-laws' dirty clothes and John's clothes from his shower. I thought the least John could do was run the washing machine, but when I looked over, he was relaxing with his father, drinking beer. With a sigh, I tossed the laundry into the washing machine and started it. At the same time, I finished cleaning the bathroom and returned to the kitchen. Maria was sitting on the sofa, working on her knitting hobby. Apparently, she was into making hats this time. She showed no intention of helping with dinner and kept her back turned to me as she worked. Watching her out of the corner of my eye, I finished preparing dinner. Dinner was ready a little after 7 p.m., and I called the three of them to the table.
Dinner's a little late in this house, isn't it?
Maria sighed as she placed her knitting project into a basket.
Oh, come on. Don't say it like that.
My father-in-law, Sam and John, both tipsy and red-faced from beer, sat down at the table.
Looks good, doesn't it?
We all gathered around the table, sharing comments and complaints about the meal. I hardly remember how the food tasted that night. I used to long for the idea of a close-knit family, but is this what it's supposed to be? It felt different from the family bond I had imagined. Balancing housework and my job, I finally had a day off from work. That morning, I started deep cleaning the entire apartment. I stripped the covers off the beds and washed sheets for all four of us, hanging them out to dry on the balcony. The weather was perfect, and I was sure they would dry quickly. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the refreshing air. Then, I noticed the dirt on the balcony windows. Since I'm on the shorter side, I realized I couldn't easily reach the higher spots. I decided to ask John, who was lying on the couch watching TV. Hey, John, could you help me out for a second? He gave me an annoyed look.
What is it?
He kept lying there, looking up at me with disinterest. I couldn't believe how lazy he was. and just as I was about to explain my request, Maria chimed in from the sofa.
Rachel, what on earth are you trying to make the breadwinner of this household do?
Well, I was just going to ask him to help clean.
Cleaning? Asking your husband to clean is ridiculous. What kind of upbringing did you have? I've never made my husband do chores.
Angrily scolding me, she stormed off to the room she had claimed as her own. Watching her retreating figure, John turned back to me and said,
Well, there you go.
"What does that even mean?" Left with no choice, I brought out a folding step stool and finished the cleaning myself. I felt like crying, realizing how spineless John was when it came to his mother. But John's lack of reliability wasn't my only concern.
Rachel, can I get that now?
Sam asked with a sly grin, referring to the allowance he demanded every month. It wasn't just him. Maria also asked for money regularly. Could you discuss this with John instead? When I said that, Maria exploded with anger.
He already pays the living expenses. If you're working too, you should be generous enough to give us a little spending money.
Faced with her yelling, I reluctantly gave them $300 each month.
Well, that's barely anything. Don't be so stingy.
Her complaints were relentless. I carried on with my days, letting their words go in one ear and out the other. If I hadn't, I would have broken down long ago. If they had the energy to complain, at least they weren't sick, I thought to myself. A few months after they moved in, Sam suddenly fell ill and was hospitalized. According to the doctor's diagnosis, it is gout. I went to the hospital multiple times to care for him and even covered his hospital and treatment expenses. When I talked to John about the costs, he stuck out his tongue apologetically and said,
Sorry about this. Can you take care of it?
After a few weeks in the hospital, I decided to help Sam adopt a healthier lifestyle upon his discharge. I borrowed books from the library and planned nutritious meals for him. While Sam enjoyed the new meals, Maria clearly wasn't pleased.
That's so bland. What is this?
She said as she poked at the beef stew. I adjusted the seasoning and reduced the salt for health reasons.
Well, the flavor's mild, but it's tasty,
Sam said, complimenting the dish. Meanwhile, Maria wore a sour expression beside him. The next day, clearly dissatisfied with my cooking, Maria went grocery shopping. She bought greasy prepared foods and served them to Sam. Looking at the leftovers, I said to her, Maria, you need to pay more attention to his diet, or his gout will flare up again. I urged her to help improve his eating habits. They must have been living with such eating habits all along. I knew it wouldn't be easy to change years of unhealthy habits overnight. But she showed no interest in listening to me.
Stay out of it. You're not family.
She scolded me harshly. A few weeks after my father-in-law's discharge, John came up with an idea.
How about a trip to LA to celebrate Dad's recovery?
LA, that sounds wonderful. I was thrilled at his suggestion. John and I hadn't even gone on our honeymoon yet. The idea of our first trip filled me with excitement. My in-laws were also overjoyed, smiling ear to ear.
That's my son.
Maria praised John, clearly delighted. Since John offered to book the plane tickets and a luxury hotel online, I focused on getting everything else we'd need for the trip. Finally, the departure day arrived. From the morning, Maria was unusually upbeat.
Does this hat look good on me? Or maybe this one?
She kept pondering over her options. Since she had knitted them herself, the only difference between the hats was the color. They all looked the same to me. I think the green one you made recently suits you best. She picked up the green hat made of yarn and looked pleased. Since John wasn't confident driving, Sam took the wheel to the airport. John and I sat in the back seat, and we headed out. The weather was great, warm and sunny, and my in-laws were in a good mood. Everything seemed perfect. After about an hour of driving, we stopped at a rest area for a restroom break. Maria, who had been chatting nonstop and drinking plenty of tea, hurried to the restroom.
Oh, Rachel, make sure to pick up souvenirs for the relatives. I'm counting on you, 6 sets, and don't buy the same ones for everyone,
she shouted before disappearing. We hadn't even reached our destination, so why were we buying gifts here? Still, I followed her instructions and carefully chose 6 different sets of gifts. Oh, carrying 6 sets of gifts was no small task. After loading them into the car, I finally headed to the restroom.
All right, everyone's back. Let's go,
she said in an unusually excited tone. Wait, I haven't used the restroom yet. When I objected, she gave me a deeply annoyed look.
What? Everyone else is already gone.
She let out an exaggerated sigh. Sorry, I'll be quick, I said as I dashed off to the restroom.
Hurry up.
I heard her call out behind me. I quickly finished, washed my hands, and returned to the parking lot. We still had plenty of time before the flight, so why was she in such a rush? Puzzled, I was met with an unexpected sight. Wait, I'm pretty sure it was parked around here. The silver sedan Sam had been driving was no longer in its spot. Could I have made a mistake? I searched the surrounding area where it might be, but the car was nowhere to be found. After about 5 minutes of looking, I got a call from Maria. Yes, Maria? I could hear her laughing on the other end of the line.
You took so long in the restroom, so we decided to go ahead without you.
Her voice was full of amusement. It was then that I realized this had been her plan all along. Wait! Please, hold on.
It's your own fault for being so slow.
Hearing this, I resigned myself to the situation. All right, please enjoy the trip for me as well.
Of course. Take care of the house while we're gone.
She hung up after saying that. I immediately looked at my smartphone. I logged into the credit card company's member page and submitted a request to suspend my card. Now what? I looked around the quiet parking area. Apparently, they were selling apple pie nearby. I decided to try some first. By the time I had indulged in various snacks at the rest area and felt full. Then, Maria called again. I answered the call, holding a can of beer in one hand.
What did you do?
What do you mean? I calmly sipped my beer as she shouted on the other end.
Why have the plane tickets been canceled? Did you do something?
Even as she accused me, I knew there was nothing I could do. It seemed Maria had decided that I must have accessed their ticket booking account and canceled the reservations out of spite. How did she even come to that conclusion? For one, I wasn't involved in booking the tickets at all. The only thing I did was suspend my own credit card. Oh, I see. That's probably why. I muttered to myself, but Maria didn't miss it.
What do you mean? It was you, wasn't it?
Wasn't the payment for the tickets made with my credit card? It didn't seem like she understood what I was saying. So, since I suspended my card, the payment likely didn't go through, and the tickets were canceled.
What's that supposed to mean?
Apparently, John had booked the tickets, but the payment was made using my card. Anticipating something like this, I had suspended the card. When Maria learned this, she directed all her anger at me.
John is paying for the living expenses. The trip expenses should be your responsibility. That's why I allowed you to work.
Her voice was filled with indignation, and she yelled at me with a condescending tone. Even holding the phone away, I could still hear her shouting. At this rate, I was at risk of going deaf. Since my ears were starting to hurt, I reluctantly hung up. I also blocked her number for good measure. Once everything was quiet, the beer tasted even better. It was time to call for a ride. I reached out to my friend who had been worried about me marrying John. She arrived quickly after I contacted her. When she showed up, I was just opening my second can of beer.
This turned into quite the disaster.
She sighed. Sitting in the passenger seat with her permission, I continued sipping my beer. Who would have thought they'd just leave me behind like that?
That's why I told you not to marry him,
she said with a bitter expression. It was clear that she was extremely exasperated. Come on now, don't get so mad, I said, leaning on my friend for comfort. It's going to be a hassle from here on out. Once I got back home, I immediately called a moving company to clear out the furniture.
All of it?
Yes, please. When I had moved into this house, I had brought my favorite furniture with me. Most of it was inherited from my late parents. Looking at the now spacious house, I felt a strange sense of relief. Meanwhile, after 2 weeks of traveling, John and his parents returned. John called me as soon as he landed.
Please, I need your help.
What's wrong? I decided to hear him out. Apparently, the three of them had enjoyed their trip using John's credit card, but Sam's gout flared up at the airport. Even though I had warned him to be careful, he had indulged in extravagant meals during the trip. Now, unable to drive due to the pain, they were stuck. Maria didn't have a driver's license, and John wasn't confident enough to drive. In desperation, they had called me. Well, I don't own a car, so I can't help you. Having said that, I hung up the phone. Left with no other choice, the three of them managed to hitchhike their way home.
Oh, finally, we're home.
I heard their weary voices from the front door. As they walked into the house, exhausted, they froze in shock. The furniture was gone. The three of them stared at me, mouths agape.
What happened to the house?
Welcome back. Must have been a tough trip. I greeted them casually. Maria was the first to snap out of it, exploding with rage.
What is this? You thief! Where's all the furniture?
Dodging her attempts to grab me, I calmly answered. What are you talking about? All the furniture was mine. Crossing my arms, I stood firm as Maria glared daggers at me. She was clearly not ready to accept this.
You're a disgrace as a wife. I never want to see your face again.
She spat the words out. Well, that was my line. Seizing the opportunity, I placed a completed divorce paper on the floor. John said in a trembling little voice,
Please reconsider.
Hearing this, Maria erupted like a volcano.
Good riddance. You better go along with it.
She pressured John into agreeing to the divorce. He must have been controlled like this all his life. John seemed to have no way to resist and reluctantly complied with his mother's demands. With shaky hands, he signed the paper and handed it to me, shoulders slumped. Finally, I'm free! I could barely contain my joy. My voice betrayed my excitement, even if I held back from dancing. Oh, by the way, Maria, did you know? I asked Maria with mock curiosity.
What now?
I explained how John had quit his job after we got married to pursue a career as an illustrator. However, Despite posting his work on social media, he hadn't earned a cent. So, John wasn't contributing to living expenses at all. I was paying for everything. I declared loudly, making sure she understood. She was clearly very irritated. Maria was glaring at me, biting her lip. John, looking dejected at my feet, muttered in a small voice.
I thought we could live off Rachel's income.
He even started crying. I had thought John became more unreliable after his parents moved in, but I hadn't realized it was this bad. I was so stunned I didn't even have words. Oh, by the way, watching John slump back, I suddenly remembered something. Oh yes, an important detail. I was also transferring funds to cover the payments on John's card, but that's stopping now too, I said, making sure to be clear. Maria, stunned, gaped at me. Her expression was almost comical. This trip's expenses? Not my problem anymore because I'm divorced now. I predicted they'd soon receive payment demands for the travel expenses. Snapping out of her shock, Maria glared at me and shouted,
Family is supposed to help each other. You should pay it.
She tried to intimidate me, but I calmly stepped toward the door. Family? Well, we're not family anymore. I'm divorced. I left those words behind and hurried outside. Waiting in front of the apartment, my friend waved me over. Hurry up. As I approached her car, I noticed all three of them chasing after me.
Get the car, now.
Maria yelled at Sam, but he was immobilized by the pain in his foot. She then turned to John, but he shouted back,
I can't drive either.
How pathetic. Isn't the car still at the airport? I muttered as I got into the car. As my friend's car started moving, Maria attempted to run after us, but her unfit body couldn't keep up. Looking at the three of them in the rearview mirror, my friend and I burst into laughter as we headed to the city office. 3 months later, I was officially divorced and feeling refreshed. I cut the hair I had been growing out for years, chopping it from mid-back length to a long bob. It felt like shedding not only my hair, but all the unnecessary memories tied to it. I was in a great mood, and even people at work complimented my new look, saying it suited me. That day, I styled my newly cut hair lightly and headed to the office. Having time for myself like this felt wonderful, something I had come to appreciate more and more recently. As I approached my workplace, I noticed a commotion outside.
What's going on here?
Is it some kind of protest?
A protest? Curious. I stopped and looked closer. Pushing through the crowd, I spotted someone at the center. Oh no, it's Maria. I whispered in disbelief. She was sitting there with a sign that read, Justice against the bad wife. Unbelievable. What kind of nerve does it take to pull this off? If she noticed me, she'd undoubtedly cause a scene. Just then, a police officer approached her.
Mom, you can't sit here. This is private property. Let's have a chat at the station, okay?
No way. I'm waiting for someone.
Even with the police, she was defiant. Apparently, someone had reported her for obstructing the area.
I didn't do anything wrong.
She protested loudly, but then spotted me and pointed, shouting,
There she is, that bad wife. It's all her fault.
Thankfully, the crowd was so large that no one knew who she was pointing at. I quickly slipped away, pretending I didn't know her. Well, technically, we had been strangers for 3 months already. Later, I got a call from the police, informing me of what she had told them. According to her, John had received notices from the credit card company after the trip, but couldn't make the payments. No surprise there. He had no income. His parents couldn't afford to cover the costs either, and they ended up on a blacklist, facing significant financial trouble. Apparently, Sam's gout had worsened, but without insurance payments, they feared the high cost of hospital treatment and opted for home care instead. It was a sad story, but there was nothing I could do to help. Hearing it all left me feeling down. I was staring at my shoes when I heard a car horn. My friend had arrived to pick me up. She was waving at me with a smile. I walked over, got into the passenger seat, and said, "Sorry, and thank you."
No problem at all. Sorry I'm late.
It was no overtime day, so I had managed to finish work early. I had planned ahead to take the afternoon off so we could head out for a trip. We were going to stop by my new place to pick up my luggage and then head off together.
Tonight, we're having an amazing dinner.
And a resort hotel too. The views will be incredible. My friend replied cheerfully as she drove. We had plans to stay at a luxury hotel, enjoy the pool. It's probably around the time when the autumn leaves are at their most beautiful. I couldn't wait to see the scenery from the car windows. We're usually surrounded by crowds of people. The beauty of nature must be truly exceptional.
Before we get there, I want to try some delicious soft serve ice cream.
My friend showed me a shop on social media that was along the way, her excitement evident. Sounds perfect. Let's eat all the good stuff we can. A girls' trip with a good friend was guaranteed to be fun. Tomorrow, we are planning to visit a spiritual spot to restore our energy, hoping to find a good relationship with someone this time around.